and then giving their critiques if necessary, their duty is to always do so from the perspective of how to better serve the working people's interests and demands. Then, the people who work there, and also this workplace serving as a model for other workplaces like it,
goddamn fucking internet,
and the people learn
they
about
build all
this
these beautiful
guidance in
apartment
the
buildings
mass
just
media,
to keep them
and then
empty,
they
of course.
consider the advice in view of their own workplace. They then may use workers' organizations of state power, such as the People's Committees.
Ever since we had the flood, comrades, my internet's been a little bit fucked up. We have a technician coming on Friday.
It should be noted here that
on the 10th.
Have a People's Committee.
The 15th, 10 more days, I mean.
Workers,
fuck's sakes.
and who make all important decisions, as well as appointing or removing individuals from management positions. Now, as I mentioned earlier, within the Workers' Party of Korea, Kim Jong-un has one vote on party decisions, as all members do, and thus has less power or official
get it out of the way now,
authority
you fucking
than any presidential or parliamentary leader, and probably even more than most senators for that matter. And furthermore, again, can be removed by the party or people at any time by recall vote. Far from being a dictator, I hope you can now see that Kim Jong-un is a representative of the working class people, and himself a worker and communist who dedicates himself to the masses, and earned any honorary titles he possesses by representing their interests, and that his primary duty is to carry out the orders of the workers' state while meeting their interests and reflecting their demands. Before I end the video, I just want to mention that the actual head of state in DPRK is Comrade Kim Jong-nam, who, by the way, is
from a
no
while
relation
ago,
to
from
Kim
this
Il-sung's
part.
family. And Kim being a very common name, in fact, the most common name in Korea, in the northern half or the southern half. Comrade Kim Jong-nam is president of the Presidium of the People's Assembly, which is the highest organ of state power when the SPA itself is not in session, while Comrade Pak Pong-ju, as chairman of the cabinet, is the official head of government. However, even in these positions,
Separate
they have
positions.
one vote on all decisions, as do everyone who participates in their same state organ, thanks to, again, the principle of democratic centralism.
Keep forgetting I don't have a webcam. I just did the Home Alone thing there, in case you were wondering.
And finally, the Presidium, like all other organs, is ultimately accountable to the Supreme People's Assembly itself. The great proletarian hero and eternal president of the DPRK, Kim Il-sung, declared, "The people are my God," and said to be a great leader, one must first use the masses as a teacher before giving guidance to them. Comrade Kim Jong-il worked tirelessly in carrying out people-oriented policies, which he called benevolent policies.
This footage is from
an integral
DPRK.
part to the building of socialism and vital to the survival of the revolution.
From some sort of
which is being
DPRK
proven
documentary
daily
I have
by the
saved.
DPRK
We will
and
watch
the
it
continuing
eventually.
Korean Revolution. It is because of efforts and dedication, such as I described in this video, that we see a genuine love and trust between the leaders and people.
I'm trying to think where
and
that
a true,
was from.
firm unity behind the correct leadership of the WPK and the masses that has not been realized in any other country so far. This was clearly demonstrated by the scenes we saw in DPRK of people deeply mourning when the great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il passed away, and no communist, socialist, or progressive person should speak ill of these events. Hopefully this video helped you gain a better understanding of how the leadership in DPRK, as well as the role of WPK and Comrade Kim Jong-un, actually works, and dispelled any notions you may have had about dynasty.
Oh, that must have been one of the early footage. Probably one about Kim Il Sung or about
this episode,
the war.
Comrades. Check out
we'll
our
watch
Facebook
it eventually.
and Twitter pages for more Juche and DPRK content, which I will leave links to in the description of this video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please remember to like, subscribe, and share so we can raise the revolutionary consciousness of the masses. And because I run solely on your motivation and encouragement. Red salute, Juche comrades.
All right. Well, we'll run the intro here. So Sean, yeah, black and white. I think it's from my earlier video that I got. So Sean, for DPRK, regarding that, there's of course enormous progress that still needs to be made in regards to forming the type of family code that we see in Cuba, which I don't have any doubt DPRK will reach that point. But one thing that is important to know about DPRK is, even unlike other socialist states, it never had a history of persecuting or criminalizing anyone based on sexuality or gender. And that's one reason why you don't see the same type of militant pride movement that emerged in Cuba, because unfortunately, as we know, Cuba did make mistakes in that regard, which, thankfully, in Fidel Castro's own life, he was able to apologize for it, right? So what I always say is that trans people struggle to realize that family code in DPRK, unlike many other countries, can take place in the state organs themselves, because the people in DPRK have those levers. And I always like to link to my trans comrade's article here that she wrote quite a few years ago now, but I mean, it's still a very well-written article. That's sort of a response to the mainstream liberal and Western anarchist claims about DPRK in regards to that. I mean, I think it's a fantastic example that it is a country that has never persecuted anyone based on that, where even other socialist countries have made that mistake. I think that's a huge thing that we communists should recognize about it. For sure, Sean. And again, that's not to deny that, of course, being a victim of colonialism, being a victim of pressure from the West, it of course needs progress in that area. And there's no doubt about that. Same as every single country on Earth, I would say. Let's run the intro. Please do, Sean. If you haven't joined the Discord, consider it. Welcome, Dorian. Falcon. I'm waiting for Halloween in your theater, Falcon. Gotta catch Blood Quantum with you all this year. Hey Cinnamon, welcome. Welcome in, everyone. Leaping Larry here. You can call me LL, as chat has taken to doing. You can call me just Comrade. Whatever seems most fitting to you. You can also check out my socials, by typing in socials into chat here. Don't forget about my Facebook pages, which contain a wealth of information. And then if you're still itching to learn more, of course, down at the bottom we have the link to Iskra Books. By the way, Sean, here's that quote I was thinking of when we were watching that clip this morning before the intro. Once our economic officials suggested that a gold mine be developed on Mount Myonghang. I did not agree with them. However, as Mount Myonghang is one of the most noted of the 5 beautiful mountains in our country, and the development of a gold mine on it might spoil its beauty. I explained to the officials the need to preserve the beautiful scenery of Mount Myonghang. Even though we might not be able to mine several tons of gold, I told them to make it more pleasant and turn it into a cultural recreation ground for the people. Love that fucking quote. Right, well, now in the mornings. Yep, there's gold in the mountains. And DPRK, unlike every other country, was like, but we're not gonna bother mining it. Instead, we're gonna make the scenery nice for the people. And now you're starting to see why imperialists hate it so much. Don't forget, like 6 days or so, and this should be available. Finally. Been a while, but it's coming, and we're gonna read it on this channel. Okay, I'm also gonna have you comrades. We got the core Juche gang in here now. You got your book, Cinnamon? How does it look? Is it everything you expected it to be? Okay, what is our feature presentation today? That's what you comrades are deciding. So make sure you vote this time. I want mandatory voting policy on this channel. Okay, is it going to be Crossing the Line, which is the movie about the defectors to the DPRK? There is about to be a poll. Or we could watch Ukraine on Fire, which is Oliver Stone. Mandatory voting still required, Frank. Okay, the polls in chat while we watch the next part of our Squirrel and Hedgehog here. So, Crossing the Line, about defectors to the DPRK, mostly James Dresnock. Or Ukraine on Fire, which is an Oliver Stone movie about the situation in Ukraine. But it was made back in 2017. I see 4 votes, that's half the viewers. Oliver Stone to live. Lots of people going across the line. Oh, Falcon can't see the poll, so I have one vote that I'll use for you then, Falcon. I usually abstain from voting because I'm, of course, in the party, not allowed to vote on state organs. You saw it back in 2016? Oh, crossing the line or Ukraine on fire, Cinnamon? These are the weasels that were coming to Flower Hill. Last episode we saw them arriving with a briefcase. Get your cereal or morning joints ready. Hint? Hint? Yeah, we will definitely still get to Ukraine on fire at some point. Frank knew what was up.
특공대를 잡을 임무를 적후 경험이 많고 변장을 잘하는 정찰병 무로리에게 줍시다. 대장남이 우리 꽃동산에 특공대를 들여보낸 목적은 무엇일까?
꽃동산에서 명절을 즐길 기회를 잘만 이용하면 검은 쪽제비가 성공할 수 있을 텐데.
분명 뭔가 큰 걸 노리고 있다. 그게 과연 무엇일까?
만약 검은 쪽제비가 성공하면 곧 총공격을 들이대어 꽃동산을 집어삼켜야 한다.
Better not. Leave Flower Hill alone.
아, 사격 솜씨가 괜찮은데 곧 새우섬에 가야겠다.
그건 무슨 일로?
거기 가서 전투 준비를 갖추고 다음 명령을 기다리라.
알겠습니다. 내가 있으면서 대장님의 진술을 알아내지 못해 꽃동산에 위험을 주다니. 꽃동산에서 지금 어떻게 하고 있을까? 적제비 대장놈의 음모를 파탄시키자면 무엇보다도 특공대 놈들의 목적이 무엇인가를 알아내야 합니다. 여기서 덕무의 임무가 대단히 중요하오. 명심하겠습니다.
I love this duck.
과이섭선을 잘하시오. 그놈은 덕가시와 함께 특공대의 길 안내를 하게 된 것만큼 접선장소에 꼭 나타날 거예요.
Fucking love this duck.
없습니다. 임무를 수행하고 돌아와서 오늘 저녁 꽃명절 축하 모임에 꼭 참가해야 한다는 걸 잊지 마시오. 임무를 수행하고 돌아오겠습니다.
You better not fucking die. You better not.
이 한 놈을 받쳐서라도 꽃동산에 들어온 원수놈들을 모조리 잡아낼 테다. 아이고 우리 다리팔이야. 다행히도 살았구나. 하긴 쉽게 죽으면 물망초가 아니지. 그렇지. 이제 빨리 덕가지를 만나자. 아이고 이렇게 알몸으로 접선장소에 갈 순 없지 않아. 어쩐다.
Yeah, I didn't like the way they were saying bye there, Frank. It's got me worried.
그렇지. 여기 뭐가 있나? 고급 시계로구나.
Watches?
이거. 여기 또 뭐가 들어있나? 자, 나주 가면? 오늘은 일이 착착 맞아 떨어지는 걸. 이렇게 고급 양복까지 처음 입으면야.
I like where this is going.
물망초놈이 발신 장치가 되어 있는 시계를 덥석 물었습니다.
이 아름다운 꽃동산을 기어이 타고 앉아야 할 텐데. 길 안내가 없이 가다간 당장 들장나겠고. 이거 어디 속이 떨려서 견딜 수가 있나? 야, 넌 물망초가 제대로 접선하는지 알아보고 와.
예? 알겠습니다.
야야, 이 나쁜 놈이 우리 꽃동산에 들어왔대.
야, 저 사진 좀 보라.
I love how they just use bastards so frequently.
벌써 내 사진?
따지 할아버지 왜 그렇게 떠나요?
아이, 떨긴.
즐거운 명절날에 저런 나쁜 놈을 보니 내 놈은 치가 떨려서 그런다. 나쁜 놈 같은 놈. 어휴, 까딱하다간 꽃도 갈 수 있겠구나. 빨리 접선장소로 가자. 접선 장소가 여기라고 했는데 똑같이는 안 보이고 저건 이놈이야? 아무래도 기름직한 걸.
혹시 물망초란 꽃을 찾지 않습니까?
아니요. 난 저 가시도 친 꽃을.
아, 그래요? 그럼 주의해야겠군요. 가시에 덕이 있을 수도 있으니까요.
아무는 맞는데.
That's the code?
그런데 독가신
거리에 사진까지 나붙은 당신 딸을 만나겠다고 덕가시가 이런데 함부로 나올 것 같소? 난 덕가시 연락원이요. 이번엔 내가 덕가시를 대신한단 말이요. 알겠어?
그렇다. 그런데 왜 접선 표식을 보이지 않는 거야?
혹시 이것 때문에 그러는 게 아니요?
아, 그런 걸 난 또 이거 정말 반갑소. 계산이 와. 큰일 나군.
Goose is an insider.
그게 정말이야?
독가시 대신 웬 계산이가 게다가 거기에 불망초의 사진까지.
계산이? 망토의 사진까지 나붙었다고? 계산이 그 놈은 도대체 누구일까? 만약 꽃동산 놈이라면 어쨌든 잘 검토해보고 여차하면 제껴버리자.
혹시 물망초가 꼴이라도 잡힌 게 아닐까요?
야, 넌 여기 남아있다가 그놈이 오면 정확히 알아보라. 나머진 날 따라 매복.
여기가 바로 특공대와 만나는 곳이오. 이것들이 어딜 갔어?
아하. 멋쟁이 따지와 계산이가 이 산속으로 산볼 나왔는가?
매기 팔아. 나야 나. 자, 물망초 형님이야. 그래, 다들 어디 있어? 별일은 없었겠지?
꽃동산에서 웬 안경쟁이 생제 사진을 소개했더군. 이름은 물망초. 어때?
뭐라고? 야, 이 자식아, 이게 갑자기 무슨 말버릇이야?
허튼 수작 마라. 난 우선 가치연 놈부터.
Every time they say that, take a drink.
맛이 아닌 거고. 꽃동산 놈이겠지? 응?
네 놈은 도대체 누구냐?
나야 토끼지. 별명은 외기파리.
야, 이놈아! 이 계산인 똑같이 연락원이다.
아이고 왜 큰 소리여? 지금은 내가 고문 쪽제비를 대신한단 말이야.
The rat's disguised as a Flower Hill rat, I guess.
고문 족제비를 대신한다고?
고문 쪽제비.
자, 계산이 썼세. 난 당신을 믿을 수 없어. 그러니 우리 손이 죽을 수밖에. 저 물망쳐도.
아이고, 야 이놈아, 닥치지 못해. 믿는 도끼 반등 찍는다더니. 야, 이놈이 나까지 죽이겠다고. 이놈아!
하마. 고급시계? 그건 또 어디서 난 거야?
잔말 말고 날 빨리 고문 쪽제비한테로 안 나려. 난 네 놈과 말씀할 새가 없다.
그렇다. 야, 어서 나와.
깜짝
Oh, here's the weasels.
꽃동산에 상까지 받아.
I guess the rats are greedy.
내 지게를 난 지키를.
They'll work against the weasels.
야! 수절대로 가장하고 저놈들 덮쳐라. 그때 계산도 어떻게 나오는가 보자. 알겠지? 빨리!
우린 바람이 승철대다.
Right, crossing the long winds.
날 검토하는 거지 않을까?
Okay, so the goose appears to be fighting people from Flower Hill. My God. Well, there's a something.
이거 어떻게 하면 좋아?
왕국? 예. 하지만 물안개는 그 검토를 이겨내고 두 놈을 끌고 빠져나갔습니다. 나머지 놈들을 없애치웁시다. 알았습니다. 이어져서 놈들을 막으라.
Duck's gonna go.
야, 빨리 뛰라!
특공대가 다 죽다니. 만약 저놈이 독가시 연락원이 아니라면 어쨌든 나만이라도 살아서 기어이 성공해야 한다. 계산이 선생, 꽤 용감한 걸. 하지만 난 아직 널 잘 모르겠다.
그건 내가 할 소리요. 거리에 사진까지 나붙을 정도로 얼떨떨한 당신네들 때문에 우리 독가시망이 위험하게 됐다는 걸 아는가? 그래도 난 당신들을 덮자고 목숨 걸고 왔는데 비겁한 것들, 난 돌아가겠어.
가만. 뭘 그다지 성낼 게 있나? 이럴 새가 없다. 오늘처럼 꽃명절 축포가 오르면 우린 일을 쳐야 하니까.
축포가 오르.
Now I have a feeling she's the double agent,
감히.
but wrong. She could be genuinely working with them, I guess.
뭐야? 응?
이 물망쳐가 시계를.
음? 혹시 모조리 같은 것들 이 시계에 도통장치가 되어 있을 수 있다는 걸 몰라? 자, 그럼 연락원. 우릴 빨리 뼈조산으로 안내하라.
They don't need to tap devices if she's the mole.
아니, 꽃동산에서 제일 높은 산이 올라선 뭘 하자는 거요? 혹시 꽃명자리 축포라도 구경할 셈이요?
우린 꽃동산의 불벼락을 꽉 안겨주자는 거야.
어?
자, 빨리 가자.
놈들이 노리는 목표를 알자면 이놈들을 우선 뾰족산으로 끌고 가야 한다.
Yep.
물안개와 연기가
Yep.
끊어졌습니다.
뭐라고?
He's a double agent.
물안개가
Based
혼자서 놈들과
goose.
해결하게 됐습니다. 야, 이놈아! 그러다 흔적을 남길 수 있다는 걸 모르는가?
Another shot, by the way, for everyone. Dead bastard again. That's gotta be something else. It can't be equivalent to that in Korean. I just can't imagine. Maybe, I don't know.
뼈쪽산에서 보니 모든 것이 다 잘 보이는군. 그렇지. 저게 앵두골 탐지기 초소로구나. 축포라. 그럼 우리도 더 멋진 축포를 쏴야지. 우리가 노리는 목표가 바로 저 앵두골 탐지기 초소다.
거기가 어디라고 감히 그걸 노린단 말이오. 특공대를 다 없앤 주제. 그러다간 우리까지 다 죽소.
가만. 특공대는 없지만 저 나비탄만 있으면 내 혼자서도 충분하다. 이 나비탄은 목표만
Butterfly bombs.
2구 200리구 따라가 타격하게 된다. 그뿐인 줄 아는가? 우리가 저 탐지기를 날려보내면 꽃동산은 눈먼 소경이 될 게고 그 기회에 하늘과 땅 바다에서 꽃동산에 대한 총 공격이 개시될 것이다.
Oh.
야, 여기 파리, 빨리.
You bastards! You leave Flower Hill alone.
보존이 왔습니다.
어? 어디? 목적지에 무사히 도착. 이제 곧 목표를 타격하게 된단 말이지. 검은 쪽제비 좋아, 아주 좋아. 이제 꽃동산 탐지기 초소는 다 먹어놓은 떡이다. 그렇다면 꽃동산에 쏟아질 무서운 불벼락, 그것은 곧 나의 승리의 축포로 될 것이다. 야! 빨리 출발진지를 찾아라!
Oh shit. It's a lot of missiles.
독가시 연락원. 우리 함께 꽃동산이 불바다로 되는 멋진 장면을 구경하지 않겠어?
이 사실을 빨리 집에 알려야 할 텐데.
이제 나비탄이 자동적으로 발사되면 그것은 꽃동산 총공격의 신호로 될 것이다. 그 시간은 정각 8시. 자, 출발!
안 된다, 이놈들아!
Oh, she couldn't take it no more. Oh no, oh shit, it's stuck. I just saw the feet. Go, duck, go.
불안개가 보한다. 뭐라고? 8시에 전광격을? 불안개의 보고에 의하면 특공대 놈들의 타격 목표는 앵두골 탐지기 초소입니다. 문제는 놈들이 탐지기 초소를 까버리는 것과 동시에 꽃동산에 대한 총 공격을 개시한다는 겁니다. 모든 부대들은 전투 준비를 갖출 것.
알았습니다.
Two arms.
야, 터진다. 터져.
잠시 후면 나비타는 앵두골 탐지기 초소를 향해 자동적으로 발사될 것이다.
Was that a total recall
꽃동산을
reference?
저물어도 벗어나 발사 전에 나비탄을 터뜨려 버려야 한다.
No. No. Duck! That's it. Kill that fucking weasel.
이놈들이 감히 우리 꽃동산을 먹어보겠다고? 안 된다.
Top 5 favorite Total Recall friend? Interesting. I don't know what my top 5 would be. Blood Quantum is up there.
시간이 됐다. 터진다.
시간이 됐다. 발사 준비. 저건 윈빅이야? 글쎄.
이놈들의 총 공격 신호를 내 우리 꽃동산의 승리 신호로 만들 테다. 여기 복수를 위하여.
Protect Flower Hill. Sean did actually see it, but it was 20 years ago. Understandable why you didn't remember that then.
무엇이 실패했다고?
예, 그렇습니다. 진정하세요.
비켜라. 아유.
무료리야. 사랑하는
Beautiful song, wholesome song, really.
까지 바친 너의 그 위임을 잊지 않고 우린 간악한 몬스놈들을 1100배로 복수하고.
Love you, Doug. Well, that was like the most ending we've had in a while. Alright, we got one more video clip to look at, and then I want to see a couple things that I'm seeing here on the old tweets. The zitter. But first...
This is Radio Truth, a series of commentaries by Dr. Michael Parenti. Michael Parenti is an activist and internationally known award-winning author and scholar. His recent books include The Assassination of Julius Caesar and Superpatriotism. His latest book, The Culture Struggle, is now available. For further information, please visit his website, michaelparenti.org.
The phony war on crime. More than a half-century ago, Dwight Eisenhower campaigned his way into the White House on a platform that promised to fight communism, crime, and corruption. In all the years that followed, political office holders
started with Eisenhower.
Praise upon themselves for tirelessly waging a war on crime and a war on drugs, outdoing each other in trying to appear tough on this issue. Police and prison budgets skyrocketed, as did prison populations, the latter consisting heavily of non-violent drug offenders serving draconian sentences. Under such bombardments, public fear about crime accelerated far more precipitously than the actual crime rate. Today, America is a nation feeling itself under siege from its criminal element. It's a land of gated communities, heavily guarded apartment towers, and millions of households armed with guns ready to dispatch unidentified trespassers. Fear of crime is supplemented with fear of ethnic minorities, terrorists, immigrants, foreigners, gays, feminists, rampaging teenagers, and outspoken peace protesters, in what amounts to a generalized culture of fear. Menacing images are implanted in our brains during our most imaginative and malleable years. In the United States, millions of children spend thousands
Comrade
of hours
Sam,
in front
welcome.
of the TV every year, ingesting a steady diet of violence-ridden programs. By the time the average teenager is graduated from high school, he or she will have witnessed about 13,000 TV killings,
comrade.
and many times that number of assaults, fistfights, robberies, shootouts, rapes, and attempted rapes. A survey by the National Institute of Mental Health found that the level of fear among children increases with heavy TV viewing. Very young children, unable to grasp the motives behind the violence, tend to see almost everyone on television as involved in a universal mode of brutality and threat. And not just children. Adults, too, ingest a steady diet of shows that feature every known violent act. Deranged murderers terrorize train passengers. Kidnappers torment and kill their captives. Terrorized women careen around in their homes, stalked by determined intruders. Vampires slurp the blood of trembling maidens. Ghoulish maniacs massacre people with chainsaws, and on and on. After enough days, months, and years of consuming this kind of fare, we might well be ready to vote for authoritarian law and order candidates, support the death penalty, increase military spending, bomb Iraq, buy a gun, and shoot anybody who strolls across our lawn after dusk. In the thriller films pitched to both young and older audiences, the basic paradigm is roughly the same. The world is swarming with fearsome aggressors who want to do us in. Virtuous Americans are menaced by evil foreigners, communists, cutthroats, diabolic geniuses, screaming savages, alien space
This is where the diabolic geniuses
giant
hang out.
asteroids, slimy serpentine creatures from beneath the lagoon, murderous mutant microbes, and other natural
Murderous
and
mutant
supernatural
microbes.
perils.
I like that
In
one.
these films, the ordinary people seem unable to defend
Where's that
themselves
movie?
through collective action. Their role is to run hither and thither, screaming to be saved from the menace. And saved they are, after suffering enough casualties, by individual heroes or state authorities who use generous applications of firepower to make everything nice again. Good guys and their enemies never get together to negotiate a peaceful settlement. They only meet to go at each other's throats. Fed a lifelong diet of such offerings, Many Americans have little difficulty accepting the picture painted by our leaders of a world full of vicious adversaries lurking within and without our borders, just waiting to pounce upon us. These malefactors can only be deterred by more police, more prisons, more repressive laws, more military spending, more and huge military establishments, and more wars. This is the great crime hype. And this is Michael Parenti for Radio Truth.
This commentary was
I love those fucking little talks. They're gems. Gotta keep remembering to sprinkle them in here. Benny here is crying again, comrades. Old Benny is crying on the internet again. South African Black Party leader Julius Malema doubles down on the "kill the Boer, kill the white farmer" song, calling for genocide of whites, then attacks Elon Musk. Quote, "He looks like an illiterate. The only thing that protects him is this white skin." End quote.
I will sing this song as and when I feel like. It's not my song, it's a struggle song. I saw some McG wannabe, one of these podcast people who failed with a very low followers, for so his relatives only that are following him. He says, I must educate Elon Musk. What is that? No, the one of Twitter. Elon Musk. I must educate Elon Musk. Why must I educate Elon Musk? He looks like an illiterate. The only thing that protects him is his white skin. Elon Musk wants to learn about this song. The records are there in court. Let him go and read the judgment. Let him go and listen to my arguments in court. I will sing this song.
Boom. Let him listen to my arguments in court. That's fucking great. And of course, I'm sure we've all heard the song that he's talking about by now. But in case you haven't, it's always worth hearing it again.
Alliance shoot to kill Yamaza, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa,
this is the Summer Bob.
Brr, pa, pa. Attention.
Oh yeah, alright, one more time.
Alliance shoot to kill Yamaza, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa, brr, pa, pa. Attention.
Love it. Love the end. Attention. And I mean, the best part, right, was Elon Musk crying. They are openly pushing for genocide of white people in South Africa. Why do you say nothing? And he responds, "Obala Masepa," which means you're talking shit. That's perhaps the cherry on top. Fucking Elon Musk. Shut up. We coop who we want. He has no problem saying that. Like, you know, he's such a little fucking edgelord. He'll be like, we coop who we want. And then the very next thing he says is crying about a song. Like, get with the bop and shut the hell up. Saw a cursed Trevor Noah video about Malma yesterday. Trying to forget that guy. Fuck, who the fuck is Trevor Noah? Oh, right. What is he on? The Daily Show, right? He took over the Daily Show, yeah. What the fuck? He is the most liberal of liberals. he's gonna go home and think about how he can be a fucking liberal. Be like, because you can't, there's nobody that could just be like that, right? Like, that's gotta be an act you gotta put on all the fucking time. Yeah, exactly, John. Elon, we coop who we want. Get over it. Also, Elon, oh no, stop singing about killing boars. You know, actual fucking oppressors. What the fuck? If you think like this, you're so off the fucking mark. We're in the era, Stam, is what Kim Il Sung termed the era of independence, and Malma and the developments in Africa are an exact reason why he called it the era of independence. We could have taken the defeatist naming approach and said, you know, oh, yeah, we're gonna call it something like, oh, the imperialist allied era. But no. Being the revolutionary optimists that they are, they called it the era of independence, because even though they're allied together, the imperialists, all of these struggles for independence and these struggles for socialism are breaking out in diversified forms all over the world. To such a degree, as he put it, that there's no international center necessary. Instead, they can come together and cooperate. This person, if you think like this, you're not a socialist. You probably want social democracy at best, which, as we know, is just capitalism with extra steps. The egalitarian views underlying socialist politics are incompatible with social conservatism. Okay, well, that's actually true. But they don't entail making maximalist left-coded positions on every issue or incident that people draw culture war battle lines over. What? Yes, they do. You can just think stuff through as it comes up. What the fuck is he talking about? I can tell Burgess sucks ass, though. You don't entail taking Maximus left-coded positions? What the hell does that mean? Look, it's really simple, okay? If you're not for the liberation of all oppression of human by human, you're not a communist. It doesn't matter how much Marx you've read, how much Lenin you've read. If you fucking he's saying, "Oh, I'm of course." He's trying to double speak, right? Yeah, it's classic opportunist bullshit. He's trying to say on one hand that, oh, of course it's not compatible with social conservatism, but yet you should be a reactionary on certain issues. Just think them through. Hint, hint. It's just typical cowardice, you know. He's got to try and cover up his actual reactionary positions by this vague fucking language. Because if he actually comes out and says it, more people would recognize that they're not a socialist or a communist, just a pro-imperialist. Look at this shit. Okay, we gotta see something cursed here. How do Canadians view the military? Most see it as old and antiquated. Jesus fuck. And not in the good way. Not in the way you're thinking. The findings are in line with the polling of the Defense Department conducted between December. Oh, sorry. More than half of Canadians see the Canadian Armed Forces as old and antiquated. The findings are in line with polling Defense Department conducted between 2022 and January 15, 2023. That phone and internet survey found only 1 in 5 Canadians saw the CAF as a modern institution, with 29% saying it's outdated. See how they're wording this to try, you know? You see the way they're wording it? Hypothesis CEO Daryl Bricker says the most respondents to its poll, conducted in June, said there is a way to shift this perspective. Oh, here it is. Put more money into the armed forces. Yeah, that's what we need to do. You fucks. The solution to that, Canadians tell us, which Canadians, is probably giving them more money. And if they could just find their way through what Canadians see as incompetence and political interference, Canadians feel they could get there. But at the moment, definitely not there, Bricker told Global News. And it's like you say, GMO, right? Like, Canadian media has been harping on this, saying this for years, beating it into people's heads. So it's like they form that climate of opinion and foster that in the population, and then they go out and interview people, and they're like, "Oh, do you think it's outdated?" Well, yeah, actually, I've been hearing from the same news station that it's been outdated for like 10 years now, so of course I believe it is. 75% of those polled by Aposta said Canada should increase defense spending to ensure Canada can protect its territory and sovereignty. Yeah, from all those attacks we get. The poll found there was a number of reasons spurring Canadians' worry about military readiness. Here we go. Look, and this is part of what it's about here, right? Most Canadians said their concerns about defending Canada are directly related to the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. 71%. But when we watched Ukraine on fire, that'll put some context to that. And China's recent actions in the Taiwan Strait, 69%. What in the fuck? Isn't that over 100%? What the hell's happening? No, it's not, right? No, that's right. Canada among Western countries making strong show of force in East China Sea. Look at this. This is what they're fucking celebrating. Oh my god. First ass fucking... Did you see that? Rising sun flag.
Three Chinese warships.
Their presence was there, but not an impact, not impediment to what we were doing.
Was there Chinese ships in the South China Sea?
But 2 days ago in the Taiwan Strait, their impact was significant. The Chinese warship cutting off USS Changhoon. The American Navy releasing new video showing the ships coming within 150 yards of colliding.
You don't ever want to be that close to another vessel because too many things can go wrong and you can actually have a collision.
That Chinese ship, a part of the world's largest navy, estimated to have 340 warships, recently surpassing the U.S. and dwarfing the 30 ships the Canadian Navy has. The Chinese buildup and other military drills has the West concerned about a potential invasion of Taiwan across the very waters that Montreal sailed just 2 days ago.
China can't invade itself.
The democratically governed island as a breakaway territory. And despite the Chinese Communist Party never controlling Taiwan, the Pentagon believes President Xi Jinping could order an attack as soon as 2027.
So I would argue that China is already engaged in a war. It's engaged in a cyber attack war.
This is how China and Taiwan appear on most maps, but this is how the CCP sees the region that we're sailing through right now. Taiwan is a linchpin in what Beijing calls the First Island Chain, a constellation of Western allies that cover the entire Chinese coast. But controlling Taiwan would give Beijing direct access to the Pacific and to the shipping lanes where nearly 50% of global trade is transported.
Because it doesn't have direct access to the Pacific now.
The free flow of maritime transportation would be incredibly disruptive to the global economy, and China has a big edge in controlling that.
U.S. President Joe Biden has said on 4 occasions the Americans would defend Taiwan from a Chinese attack, but the Canadian Defense Minister was less clear.
Canada respects the one China policy. We are concerned, however, by China's military activity in the vicinity of Taiwan, and we urge China to resolve differences through peaceful means.
They just said they respect the one China policy, and then they went on to say, but we're concerned about the military activity of China in China. What the fuck? Retired Major General Dennis Thomas says all branches of the Canadian Forces are in need of modernized equipment, such as frigates for the Navy and incoming F-35 fighter jets for the Air Force. No, they don't. Ottawa has committed to $8 billion in new military spending over the next 5 years. in the 2022-23 federal budget, along with the defense policy update. By the way, DPRK's military spending is less than some U.S. police forces. Thompson says any spending needs to be seen as an investment. That's not an investment, that's a fucking loss. What are you talking about? It's an investment in the bourgeoisie that you never get back. Deterrence is much cheaper than going to war. And I think that's the point that has to be made to a lot of Canadians. Is that while we can rest on our laurels and perhaps lean on the United States, they're not going to put up with it for much longer, Thompson told Global News. IPOS found that a large number of young people, 36% of 18 to 34-year-olds, says Canada should leave defense up to the United States, compared with 12% of those 55 and older. The majority of that younger cohort would rather see money being spent on domestic issues. Oh, imagine! Whereas 41% of those 55 and older felt that way. However, the Americans are pushing for more Canadian defense investment, with continued calls for Canada to meet its NATO commitment of putting 2% of GDP into defense spending and further NORAD investments. In his recent confirmation hearing, new American NORAD commander Gregory Gullett committed to having tough conversations with Canada on military spending. Bricker Thompson and the Defense Department study all find that the average Canadian is disconnected from day-to-day operations of the CAF. The war in Ukraine is increasing public awareness. They're just loving that war in Ukraine, aren't they? However, among issues impacting Canadians' daily lives, like the high cost of living, potential threats from nations like Russia can fall by the wayside in the minds of regular Canadians. You don't fucking say. Oh, people can't afford to eat and live? They're not so concerned about war? I wonder why that might be. Healthcare, better roads, have better education. These are things that are top of the mind for most Canadians. And defense only comes to the fore when there's a crisis, and Ukraine is a crisis, but it's a long way from Canada, Thompson said. What we need is a war at home, he's saying. One area that Canadians feel the military should play a larger role is in the Arctic, IPOS has found. Melting polar ice is making way for new shipping routes and is a new source of east-west geopolitical tensions. Oh my god, they're going there. Oh, they gotta protect the new shipping routes that are opening up, you see. Securing those new markets. That's ridiculous. Is making way for new shipping routes. That is sick. Ugh, turns my stomach to read that shit. Key finding, it's like, oh, finally, it's the Northwestern Strait they've been looking for, you know? Jesus, fuck. Key findings on northern defense include 83% in favor of the military monitoring all ship traffic through the Northwest Passage, which passes through Canadian waters. Meanwhile, 73% of Canadians surveyed want to see more military bases in the Arctic. And 51% are on board with Canada buying nuclear submarines to defend the region. Oh my god. The thing that probably is driving their biggest level of concern is our northern neighbor, which is Russia, and what's going on in Ukraine right now. And some of those old Cold War feelings towards Russia and the North are probably coming back up, Bricker said. Well, isn't that an interesting statement at the end there? Cold War sentiments is it was like a war on actual people fighting for better conditions. Jesus Christ. But why? What do you need military bases in the Arctic for? Well, because you see, soon new shipping lanes will be open and we have to shoot anybody who wants to use those shipping lanes. Because Canada, baby! That's why. Look, ever since Melanie Joy there let it slip that there's going to be a diplomatic solution. Canada is expecting to be invaded by penguins. No, the Russians, Sean, they're going to come over the polar ice caps and they're going to invade Canada and they're going to take our potatoes and our maple syrup. That's what's going to happen. Yep. That's it. That's the narrative. Look at this. They're preparing everybody. They're preparing us everyone for the end. Managing expectation. Ukraine worries about losing control of the battlefield narrative. Oh, the narrative, huh? As Ukraine troops wage a difficult fight against the well-defended Russian forces in Ukraine, the government in Kiev is waging a different kind of battle abroad, trying to shape how the world perceives its counteroffensive. Ukrainian officials and their supporters say that they are confident they will prevail on the battlefield in the end, but warn against what they see as unrealistic expectations in media coverage and commentaries that could create a misleading narrative suggesting Ukraine cannot and will not win. Quote, do things that we keep asking our allies for are weapons and patience, unquote. You don't say, said Yuri Zak, an advisor to Ukraine's defense minister. Although equipped with new US and other Western-made weapons and gear, including tanks, longer-range missiles, and artillery and munition, the Ukrainians lack air power and have encountered stiff resistance from the Russians, who have planted hundreds of mines across the front line, set up anti-tank barriers, and dug rows of defensive trenches. Since the counteroffensive was launched in June, Ukraine has retaken about 241 square kilometers of territory in the country's south and east, or less than 100 square miles, according to Hannah Mailer, country's deputy minister of defense. Wow. Holy fuck, that is not good. Boy, the Western media really wants to sell the Ukraine underdog narrative. Yeah, it took 241 square kilometers since June. Zak and other officials in Kiev said that the Ukrainian military has prioritized preserving its troops and weapons as it searches for weak points in Russia's defenses. In the meantime, Ukraine has begun to surge troops in the country's south and pursued small-scale attacks to test the Russian lines. Yeah, that's not good. None of those are good things. That's not an army. That's not the movement of an army that's doing all right. Just in case you don't know. Quite the opposite. Some U.S. officials privately expressed disappointment that the Ukrainians have appeared to hold back on deploying some of their most well-equipped, trained units, and that they have not necessarily applied the training principles they received. Quote, there is a frustration that they have not used more of the combat power that they have, unquote, said one U.S. official. Yeah, the U.S. is not happy. They're doing damage control right now. More power, they're saying. Yeah, that we gave them. That your tax dollars all help pay for, by the way. If you have to pay taxes. And if you don't, then your land. Another senior administration official said that the Biden administration and U.S. allies have given Ukraine everything it requested for the counteroffensive, including 500 tanks and hundreds of armored vehicles. Quote, we are confident that they have significant combat capacity available to them, and that they are going to employ that at a time and place of their choosing to defend their country and take back sovereign territory, unquote. Pentagon Press Secretary Brigadier General Pat Ryder told reporters on Thursday. Ukrainian officials reject the idea they are moving too slowly. Quote, I don't think there's any other nation or people in the world who would want this counteroffensive to be moving faster, unquote, Zak said of Ukraine. Quote, look, we are facing an enemy that outnumbers us in terms of personnel, artillery, and everything else. We have to be David in this battle against Goliath, which means we have to be smart, unquote, he said. Aha. Yeah, of course they're trying to make literal not... I mean, that's been the whole war, right? Trying to make... That's why, by the way, they changed the spelling of Kiev from K-I-E-V to K-Y-I-V, so that when you look up news articles about Kiev, you're not seeing all the news stories they were publishing before the conflict broke out about how there's a Nazi problem in the Ukraine military, right up to its leadership. Leonard Polyakov, a former Ukrainian defense minister, said in two separate cases, once in June and another time in July, a brigade commander has pursued direct assaults during the counteroffensive in hopes of swift victory. The army sent infantry and armored units to attack the Russian lines across uncleared minefields and without suppressing enemy fire. The brigades were shredded by opposing forces, and the commanders were severely criticized internally for unnecessary losses. Sean, bitch, you are not David in this scenario. No, they're not. President Zelensky has acknowledged that the much-discussed spring counteroffensive was delayed as Ukrainian forces work to incorporate new Western military equipment and training. In other words, they don't know what they're doing. Speaking virtually at the Aspen Security Forum in Colorado, the president said that they waited, quote, because frankly, we had not enough munitions and armaments and not enough properly trained brigades, unquote. Just what I said. The Russians were able to use additional time to build out their defenses, analysis and U.S. officials said. Now, breaking through Russian lines across the dense minefields in the east and south will almost certainly inflict high casualties on Ukrainian troops, U.S. officials and experts said. That's a tough decision for a battlefield commander to make, said senior administration officials. And I don't think that's anything anyone can begrudge the Ukrainians for taking seriously. George Barros, a Russia analyst at the Institute for the Study of War think tank, said he was concerned that policymakers and the media could set excessively high expectations for Ukrainians. There is a danger that, quote, there might be the narrative of stalemate or the narrative of a failed Ukrainian counteroffensive, unquote, said. Ukraine and its ardent supporters in the West say those unrealistic expectations could play into Russia's hands, as Moscow is beating that NATO allies over time will tire of providing military aid to Kiev and eventually lean on Ukraine to agree to concessions that could halt the fighting. Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed that Ukraine's counteroffensive had failed last week, saying that, quote, not a single area of fighting the enemy has had success. All attempts at the counteroffensive have been stopped, and the enemy has been pushed back with large losses, unquote. The count has been echoed in Russian media, pro-Kremlin telegram channels, and press statements from Moscow. Countries in Central and Eastern Europe, which have often lobbied for Ukrainians' case inside NATO and Washington, are mindful of potential war fatigue taking root in the West. In the run-up to the Ukrainian counteroffensive, Polish leaders tried to temper expectations, warning it would require a massive effort, quote-unquote, and not deliver any immediate results. Said Nikodem Rachon, spokesperson for the Polish embassy in Washington. Quote, it's quite evident that Russia exploits this aspect in its propaganda, aiming to weaken the unity of countries supporting Ukraine, unquote, Rachon said. What the fuck does that even mean? William Taylor, a former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, said there's a risk of overly gloomy conclusions about Ukraine's prospects could become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Wonder why. Quote, if the perception gets out there that Ukrainians can't win, then we're not going to provide them the stuff they need to win, unquote, Taylor said. Of course, the last one, fighting without air power. The Ukrainians say that air power is one of the crucial areas where they need international help. Without an adequate air force that can clear a path for ground forces, the Ukrainians are trying to seize back territory with only artillery and armored units, an approach no Western army would contemplate, former officials and military analysts said. We wouldn't do it, we've never done it, and yet we're asking them to do it, said Taylor, who served as an Army infantry officer in Vietnam. Fuck you. U.S. military doctrine places a heavy emphasis on coordinated air and ground attack, or joint fire support. Such an approach increases the chances of successful maneuver, according to a 2019 report from Military Services to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Without air support, Polyakov said, the Ukrainian armed forces must improvise and operate with greater caution. That means they cannot follow the fundamentals of U.S. military doctrine. But we have launched a counteroffensive without any kind of air superiority. Not in the Air Force, not in the drones, not in the helicopters. We have a little bit in terms of precision-guided artillery munitions, unquote, said Polyakov, who works for a military think tank advising Zelensky. Quote, but to talk about holding back without all these necessary components, it is ludicrous, unquote. The Biden administration says it plans to provide F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine, and European governments are organizing training for Ukrainian pilots. But it is likely it will take months before the aircraft are in action. U.S. officials say the fighters will not be enough alone to turn the tide. For Ukraine, which is dependent on outside military aid to sustain its war effort, the political stakes of the counteroffensive could not be higher. Ukraine says it's making steady progress, and that its forces have taken back territory in a period of weeks that the Russians seized over months. Oh, please. Zelensky recently praised Ukrainian troops for taking back control of the southeastern village of Staromoski after an intense battle marked by artillery duels and host-to-host fighting. An assault with armored units in June failed to break through Russian lines in the south. In the past week, Ukraine has made concentrated efforts in the western area of Zaporizhzhia Oblast, according to analysts and U.S. officials. But there has been no significant change in the front lines in the war in the past 9 months. Both Ukraine and Russian forces failed to achieve major advances. Samuel Cherub, a senior political scientist at the Rand Corporation think tank, argues that neither side has a realistic chance of scoring a definitive victory. I mean, doesn't Russia just want to... At this point, I thought Russia pretty much wants to hold the territory it's got. I could be mistaken, but that's what I thought. As a result, the United States should start preparing for an inconclusive outcome and explore options for an eventual diplomatic settlement, Cherub said. It's an indication of where things are going. That's not going to be a decisive military outcome, Cherub said. So see, they're already doing damage control and saying, get ready for the diplomatic solution that's coming up. And as I said, that Melanie Joy, she let it slip. She's a Canadian defense minister or something. She even let it slip like it's going to end in a diplomatic solution. People are sick. Have some serious problems, to say the absolute least. That's why, take the advice of Ricky.
But the thing is, in order to stop breaking the law, we gotta break the law just for a couple minutes, and then we're gonna be done, retired.
Exactly. Do that. Alright, I got one more video before we get to our featured video, which chat determined was going to be what? Crossing the Line, which is about James Dresnock and defectors from the US to the DPRK. But first, as you all know, we are a gaming channel here as well, although very infrequently. We mix it with their communism, though. And right now I have the challenge going on where you can contribute your labor vouchers to force me to play this awful game. Awful in the sense that it punishes you.
Why did
I'm a bit of a masochist, though, so don't feel too bad. We're at 90%. We got 14 days left,
I
comrades.
could have made something you would have liked. A game that was empowering, that would save your progress and inch you steadily forward. Since success is delicious, that would have been wise. Instead, I must confess, this isn't nice. It tastes of bitterness. It's capricious. It sets setbacks for the ambitious. It lacks lenience. It's bracing, inhumane. But not everyone's the same. I created this game for a certain kind of person. To hurt them.
And I will even double down on the hurt and allow comrades to have crowd control over it. Which means you can hurt me even more with your labor vouchers while I'm playing it. So, that's our challenge for this month. But in light of also being a gaming channel, we're gonna check out this this video here by Commander James Stephanie Sterling, Nintendo eSlop, the Switch's shovelware problem. And then we'll check out Crossing the Line.
Go!
Sick. I'm a masochist. 90%. I really would like to play that game at supper on stream. 2 hours.
Yeah. Hi everyone, it is I, Commander Stephanie Sterling, hosting another wonderful episode of the Gymquisition, and it is an exciting one today. It's an optimistic one, it's a positive one, because we have caught Glorbo fever along with the rest of the internet. We're going to be talking about Glorbo's exciting addition to Destiny 2 and World of Warcraft and Bad Rats. We are drinking deep on Glorbo booze, my friends. Drinking deep! Oh my god!
You realise that was a joke, right?
Huh?
That was a joke. Reddit did that to catch out AI news scraper bots.
What?
Glorbo isn't real.
No, Glorbo is Glorbo. I don't know what it is, but it's Glorbo, and I'm very excited.
Have you been getting your AI to do the script? Is this Neon?
No. Yes. No. So anyway, we're going to be talking about asset flips today and shovelware today. We weren't ever going to talk about Glorbo. No. We're going to be talking about the eShop, or as I like to call it, the eSlop.
Single arm DDT there, don't see them very often.
Saddle up, fuckbugs. We're going dumpster humping in Garbage Gulch. I've got a trash-soaked treat in store for you. Some of the slimiest slurry the video games has to offer, and you're here to choke down every filthy drop of it. You cum dogs. We're talking about asset flips, we're talking about shovelware, we're talking about glorified scams and shameless rip-offs, the lowliest dregs that Steam has to offer. Wait, what? What? Huh? What do you mean we're not talking about Steam? That's right, my sexual apes. Today we're not talking about the worthless pond scum frothing at the underbelly of Steam's storefront. Oh no. We're talking about the Nintendo eShop. The new shitness. Truly home to con merchants, pathetic hacks, and so-called developers of borderline non-games whose insistent vulgarity insults the very concept of artistic expression. The Nintendo Switch eShop has spent the last several years truly giving Steam a run for its money in terms of letting basically any old rubbish go up for sale. In fact, due to the store's layout as a result of Nintendo's commitment to being as inefficient and poorly organised as possible, it may very well be a far worse situation, at least in terms of the negative impact such a lack of quality control can have on both end users and games of genuine quality buried under a mountain of muck. You can find headlines and frustrated forum posts about the eShop shovelware problem going back years now. Such is the long-running nature of this plague, and it is a plague, with individual game developers proving single-handedly capable of drowning the store in digital vomit just on their lonesome. I mean, take the fucking clocks, for example. The eShop is awash in digital clock apps, with one entity alone responsible for over 50 store listings. Red Deer Games is likely one piss taker masquerading as a game studio, and they've been selling and reselling a single pretend clock under various guises at ridiculous prices for about 2 years. If you browse the eShop with any regularity, you'll likely have seen some of the dozens of AAA clock versions Red Deer has been sharting out since 2021. The base version has the sheer fucking gall to charge $9.99 for what is a less convenient clock than the one that's literally always on the Switch's home menu, and it's had DLC and multiple editions that are mostly bundles of content masquerading as new listings. It's about as close to pollution as an online store can have. Products like AAA Clock Director's Cut are named with such clearly sarcastic self-awareness. It essentially admits it knows what it's doing, and Red Deer is happy to get away with selling the same literally obsolete scam for as long as possible. Unless it's not self-aware. And Red Deer thinks what it's doing isn't artistically bankrupt hackery, but is actually good. I don't know what would be worse.
God, I hope that's not the case.
Ever since Steam decided, fuck it, when it comes to fucking, porn games have swamped the store with sweaty enthusiasm. Now look, I love a bit of the old, but most of these games are pitiful, lazy pieces of shit, banking on an audience somehow not knowing that pornography is already freely available on the internet. The amount of hentai sliding block puzzle games is truly astounding. Now obviously, Nintendo draws the line at drawn porn, but that hasn't stopped masturbatory malefaction merchants plying their titified trade. In doing so, they managed to somehow be an even bigger hoodwink than they were on Steam, since they're essentially selling porn without the porn. The same lazily slapped together, barely workable game, only with its one selling point censored. Hentai sliding block puzzles with the hentai taken out. You know, the one thing it had going for it, if you didn't know certain websites exist. Hentai vs. Evil is one particularly notorious example. Oh yeah, you can put the word hentai in your title, plenty of eShop games do that. While not a block puzzle, thank Christ, it is a shabby collection of assets that's about as fun to play as it is to jerk off to, and I should know.
It looks
I've
awful,
tried,
look at it.
That was a joke, of course. I'd never do something so shameful and embarrassing as to play it. Anyway, Hentai vs. Evil, which I've done a video about in the past, doesn't show any boobage whatsoever on the Switch version. The Steam alternative, mammaries aplenty, my friends. Mammaries aplenty. In a situation that's exactly like when Spider-Man was announced as exclusive to the PlayStation version of Marvel's Avengers, you're literally paying for less game content if you buy the Switch version of Hentai vs. Evil. And yes, it is the same. It is the same. It's an identical situation. It is important. It is content. I'm not just being facetious. Just. Because as I've learned since getting a pair of real ones, titties is content. TM. Anyway, that's how bad things are on the eShop. It's getting the same worthless wankathons as Steam, but somehow even more pointless.
Smoke them if you got them.
Out of the asset flips. Oh, speaking of asset flips. Asset flips, that term I coined, may have become a bit less noticeable on Steam thanks to its store curation pretty much burying a lot of them these days, but there's no such curation on the eShop, and minimum viable products made of store-bought game assets loosely stapled together are rife on Switch. Wait, no, sorry, I misspoke. I don't want to be throwing false allegations out there. Store-bought game assets resold as games. There we are, that's more accurate. PixArt has become something of a poster child for asset flipping on Nintendo's system, with dozens of examples of skeletal software bought elsewhere and resold to unsuspecting Switch customers at a premium. We have such brown gold as Zombie Apocalypse. Because what purveyor of garbage would hold their head up and be proud if they didn't have a generically named zombie game in their piss-soaked library? Look at it. Look at it! If you found a piece of shit in the woods and took a shit on that shit, not only would you have something prettier than this, you'd have made a better video game. Horrible zombies are attacking! Yes, I can see how horrible they are. Is that a black and white stock photograph as a background. Holy fuck. There's a flight simulator that could easily be done for false advertising. Look what it says here. The most beautiful flight of your life, says the store listing. Yeah, the flight from the movie Alive was more fucking picturesque. They have more than one flight sim in disparate art styles of varying quality because, of course, PixArt isn't actually responsible for any of the art. Whatever asset store they got all these flight sims from must have had a sale on. Easy Flight Simulator may well deserve an award for least appealing store screenshot in history. It's at least a serious contender. There's a slot machine app, a couple hunting sims. All that's missing is the stock standard match 3 puzzle game. Oh wait, there it is. The YouTube channel Switch Stars has extensively covered the artless buffoons. They're as prominent as they are talentless. Funnily enough, they're one of those asset flippers that seem to take some sort of weird pride in their quote-unquote work. They've defended their flippery in the comments of Star Wars Shovelware's channel before, claiming there's nothing illegal or immoral about what they're doing. Yeah. Well, I ain't saying it's illegal, and there are a lot less moral things you could do. No, it's lazy, it's pathetic, it's hack-fuck bullshit, it's creatively and artistically in the fucking red, it's sad, it's shameful, it's embarrassing, it's plagiarism with permission, it's a practice for which you cannot be called a game developer. And I defy you, PixArts, to demonstrate where the artistry is. I don't care about the legality or the morality. I care about the artistry. What have you done that qualifies you as an artist, as a creator, as a developer, as anything other than a lowly asset flipper? Try to answer that and stay fashionable. Okay, I was just going to leave it at that and move on, but before I move on, I actually do need to talk a little bit about their games because, and I feel fucking dirty for this, I had to acquire some. I used my, little Nintendo token things as if that would make it better. It doesn't, but I am glad I did because holy shit, it's worse than I thought. These games, they're barely products. The slot machine one actually disables your Joy-Cons. It's barely functional with a touchscreen, but if you're playing it docked, like I was when I tried to get footage of it, it doesn't just disable the controllers, it switches them off. I thought my batteries had died. Beat them all is one level, repeated. It took me a couple goes round before I realised that the one enemy model was all placed in the same positions, as were the weapons, and the level details were the same. It's one fucking level, masquerading as multiple. Dinos and ghosts we've already used as B-roll footage. It's fucking incomprehensible and it makes me feel motion sick. And then there's that fucking zombie apocalypse game. Utterly fucking disgusting. Way worse than screenshots could ever convey. If you shoot a zombie, the weapon it threw at you disappears along with it, but the damage is still done because it's still there. And that's the least of the things wrong with it. Holy shit, PixArts might be the actual fucking worst! The Switch also has an abundance of mockbuster-style games, at least as far as naming conventions go. In the film world, a mockbuster is a movie cheaply produced to look like a popular film with a name just legally distinct enough to not infringe on copyright. The Asylum is a notorious producer of mockbusters with such films as Transmorphers, Snakes on a Train, The Da Vinci Treasure, AVH, Alien vs. Hunter, Sunday School Musical, 18-Year-Old Virgin, how's that a premise? Paranormal Entity, The Terminators, Almighty Thor, Abraham Lincoln vs. Zombies, Atlantic Rim, Android Cop, Battle Star Wars, and Independence Day. Okay, I got to admire the audacity on that last one. You occasionally get games that try to pull the same stunt with varying degrees of cheekiness, and on Switch you'll find a few games named in such a way as to trick unassuming buyers. Super Met Boy, for example, or Roblox. They don't even visually resemble what their name suggests, but given how cheap and asset-y they are, the naming is decidedly cynical in motivation. Recently, one perfect storm of shoveled shite made the news when a wisely anonymous scam artist dribbled The Last Hope Dead Zone Survival onto the European eShop. Thanks to some truly audacious storefront artwork, Games Media quickly picked up on this game and reported on it as a shameless rip-off of Naughty Dog's The Last of Us. The actual product was even worse than a rip-off, however, because despite the fact it featured a girl whose character model could barely even claim to be legally distinct from The Last of Us's Ellie, the game itself is nothing but a bargain basement zombie shooter asset flip that takes about half an hour to beat if you don't count the amount of times the game becomes unwinnable because stamina literally never regenerates and you have such limited ammo that if you spend it shooting all but the most essential of zombies, you'll be unable to keep them off the little girl that follows about 20 fucking foot behind you at a casual jog and cowers immobile if a zombie gets within 2 fucking meters of the twat. This thing isn't a rip-off of The Last of Us. It's somehow even more fraudulent than that. It's a rip-off of a rip-off. Such an utter void of creativity, it couldn't even be bothered to copy Naughty Dog. It just used a single piece of artwork to pretend it did. And when you're such a lazy piece of shit that even plagiarism is too much like hard work, I wonder how you're even still alive, since it's hard to believe you put the effort into breathing on your own. The Switch is utterly littered with 2-bit garbage designed purely to exploit the most gullible of customers: Candy Match Kiddies, Space Invasion, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, just a ridiculous amount of shovelware in which the eShop's fucking drowning. It's become passé to make fun of the Nintendo seal of quality. In fact, it became a well-worn joke during the height of the Wii's success, beset as that system was by shovelware that glommed onto its mainstream success in a desperate bid to swindle all those millions of prospective buyers who didn't know very much about video games. But Nintendo at one time did indeed put its seal of quality on every game published for its consoles, verifying that even if the games weren't all good, in fact the NES was full of hot garbage, they were at least credibly made and not pieced together Frankenstein-like from pre-made asset packs that in some cases haven't even been renamed before getting uploaded to the shop. It's impossible to reconcile the attitude behind the seal of quality and Nintendo's current attitude of who fucking cares. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if younger generations thought the seal of quality thing was a made-up meme rather than a genuine historical point. It's rather sad, really. Despite being as greedy as any other corporation, Nintendo does still focus on being a maker and seller of games rather than shitty microtransaction-laden services. No, it just farms its IP out for that shit, but the standards it upholds for the product it produces are a million miles above the ones it has for any other fucker turning a quick buck on the Switch. They're just rolling over and letting the eShop be swarmed to such a degree that you got one fucking tool selling dozens of fucking clocks. Now obviously we've talked about asset flips and similar trash on this show since practically the very beginning. It's not new. Steam is still littered with this stuff and it's not like other consoles are free of it. In fact, I need to talk about the weird running and jumping games that have infested console stores, and of course scumbags like Gilson B. Pontus operate seemingly with PlayStation's blessing. But the Switch, compared to the PlayStation and Xbox platforms, appears to be particularly infested, and it's an especially aggravating problem because of one major issue. The fact that Nintendo eShop is, even at the best of times,
buying games that were just the character dirt.
Shit. The eShop is a bad storefront. Like a really fucking bad storefront. It's poorly laid out with clunky menus and only rudimentary filtering options. Developers don't get their own pages. You don't get user reviews or similar curation. The new releases page just squirts out game after game, one after the other. And once a title has been pushed down far enough, it practically disappears from view. When a load of wank like Zombie Hunter D-Day appears on the store, it's given just as much positioning and prominence as a game like, say, Dead Cells. At least Dead Cells gets some promotion though. Unless it's lucky enough to be featured on the eShop's, well, featured section, it's only got hours at most after launch before it's potentially
You'd
buried
be like-
under a sea
you'd be
of
like looking at
detritus.
this being like,
naturally
huh,
screws over
is
indie
this
games the
any
most,
good?
since unless they're already a big deal with a
I
lot
don't
of press,
know.
they likely ain't getting anywhere near the featured section. For a game like Blasphemous appearing in the recent releases tab, it's like placing a bottle of vintage wine on the same shelf as several vials of cold semen. The only way a game gets another shot at notability once it's pushed out of recent releases is getting seen in the great deals section.
Such an
by
awful
offering a
storefront.
discount. The only problem there is the shovelware it's competing with is perpetually on sale, and the section itself has, for whatever reason, been
Look at it.
front-loaded with Lego games for what feels like fucking years now. Seriously, every time I look in the discounted section, the first pages are literally always swamped with Lego games. It's fucking weird. So yeah, visibility is hard on the eShop. It's poorly laid out, and the way in which its releases page has been arranged ensures that every game, whether it's a well-made title or a shitty little asset flip, is given an equal amount of attention. But it's worse than that, because compounding all these issues is the fact that, as well as being badly designed, the eShop runs badly too. It's actually fucking stunning to consider the eShop is on a system that was released in the last 10 years, because it's barely developed from the fucking days of the DS. Pressing any given button will see you waiting several seconds for anything to happen, whether you've clicked on a game or just attempted to scroll up and down a menu. The lag is utterly atrocious
fun.
and has never seen improvement since the console released in
All right,
2017. In
make sure you
fact,
use the
I
lurk
sometimes
command.
wonder if it hasn't gotten fucking worse. Navigating the eShop is a painful affair, as pages frequently hang up, take forever to load, and sometimes only half appear, with a bunch of unloaded thumbnails and missing details. Then there's just a little examples of dumbassery, like if you've been browsing the deals section and decide to buy a game, the eShop will lose track of where you were browsing and reload the entire section again. If you've been scrolling deep into the discount section, you'll have lost your place if you actually buy anything, and either deal with the sluggish laggy scroll back to where you were, or, as will be more likely, you'll just not fucking bother. The quote-unquote fix that I discovered for this is to add what you want to buy to your wish list and then come back to it. But you shouldn't fucking have to do that. A skin-crawlingly awkward experience, the eShop is quite genuinely unpleasant to navigate, and I hate trying to find anything on there because it'll just be an exercise in getting fucking annoyed. When you combine the already poor discoverability with the fact that merely browsing is a pain in the perineum, you have a recipe that nobody who actually cares about games they're making will find very tasty. And Nintendo has done nothing. Nothing to redesign the crappy layout, nothing to fix the crappy performance, nothing to stop crappy games shoving good ones out the spotlight. In fact, the only thing Nintendo did to address any sort of eShop problem was do something that many developers found hurt them more than helped.
Aren't you gonna thank me?
For what?
They stopped games being able to go on sale for prices so
Didn't do
cheap they were
anything.
literally under $1. While at first glance it seems like a good idea to stop games being sold for 30 cents, since clearly such games must be low-grade asset flips, it was actually revealed by several developers of real games that these absurdly deep discounts genuinely helped make some money and drove a large amount of sales. Selling a game for pennies might not sound like a wise fiscal move, but if doing so gets thousands of people to buy a game they would otherwise never have bought, well, they're literally making a ton of money that was otherwise never going to be theirs. Severely deep discounts were very seriously helping small developers out. Of course it's the
100%
one
Frank.
practice
Enjoy
Nintendo
your
put a
nap.
stop to. The digital clocks, the pawnless pawn games, the asset flips, the suspiciously named rip-offs, the fraudsters so fraudulent they're pretending to be plagiarists because it's better than what they are, all that fucking putridity continues to thrive unabated, and will continue to do so, because people have been quite rightly complaining about it for years, and Nintendo has done nothing about it. Actually, no. If it had done nothing, small developers could still enjoy vast sales spikes thanks to vast discounts. Thanks for literally worse than nothing, Nintendo. Your seal of quality once more speaks for itself.
It's the extra poo that makes all the difference.
Commander Sterling.
And you reckon if we change the frame rate on the video, this will show up, this piece of nonsense?
I mean, 60's a bit better than 30. But unless you want to sit there and count how many times it does a thing in a second, then I guess we're all just going to have to struggle.
Yeah, Cost me 30 quid at Tesco, so I thought I might as well get some fucking work use out of it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video, as we, in my opinion, continue a streak of fucking high quality episodes. This one felt very nostalgic for me, talking about asset flips and shovelware. God, it reminds me of the days when I was actually popular. Anyway, very exciting. I tell you what, I would not be surprised if some of the games we've looked at and some of the studios we've talked about, it just wouldn't surprise me if the eShop in general wasn't full of some of the old familiar faces from way back when, the usual suspects, the old villains, as it were, the rogues gallery of Steam Greenlight and whatnot. Who knows? All I know is the eShop is fucking shit. And that'll do. And I didn't even make a joke about Tears of the Kingdom being rubbish on the eShop more than once. Thank God for me.
There you go, shovelware on the eShop. I thought that was pretty good. Right. Now. We're gonna check out this crossing the line since that's what people voted for. Hey Blatt, how goes it, comrade?
How have you been since we last spoke?
Oh, very good, thank you. A little angry, but very good.
Yeah, GMO. That video was a good show of capitalist efficiency in the gaming industry. Up early, only 4 hours after my alarm went off. Nice. Now, hopefully all the parts are here. I think they are. Controlled by one party.
In 1962, a U.S.
You'll laugh
soldier sent to
if you
guard
follow
the
the
peace
channel
in
long
South
enough.
Korea undertook an extraordinary journey. At the height of the Cold War, he deserted his unit, walked across the most heavily fortified area on Earth, and defected to an alien communist state, North Korea. The existence of an American defector living in the heart of the Cold War enemy was denied for decades by both the U.S. and North Korean governments.
I've been an orphan all my life. I wanted to run away and get something to do. And once I made up my mind to do something, I did it.
A coveted star of the propaganda machine, this man has ingratiated himself in a system that perpetuates hatred of the U.S. and subordinates the individual to the state and the leader. Who was this man? Where had he come from? What had possibly possessed him to turn his back on America, defect to the North Korean communists, and live under their protection to this day?
You gentlemen, I believe you because you come here and you want the truth. I want you to have the truth. You just ask the questions and not far away.
Oh my
I'm gonna start a
God.
cigarette.
Did you see who the narrator is?
Yes, thank you. The story I'm telling you now, I just want to put a little stress. I'm telling you, I've never told no one. Anyone.
Be warned, this is BBC. The commentary isn't going to be friendly.
I have never regretted coming to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. I feel at home. I really feel at home. I was just a regular soldier. And I give it up and came over. I wouldn't trade it for nothing.
They try to overlay this scary music.
I think you know the
Crank up the
Workers' Party
reverb.
mark. The hammer represents the worker, the brush represents the intellectual, and the sickle represents the farmer.
James Joseph Dresnok, or Joe as he prefers to be called, has spent twice as long in North Korea as he has in America. Korean is the language he uses most in his daily life.
James is one of the very few based Westerners. GMO.
Once in a great while I come in and look around. Otherwise, just sit in the bus and let my wife do the shopping. 난 어디 가서 옷 만드는 것도 마음이 없는데, 어? 너무한테만 해야 마음이 있다. 나보다 더 큰 사람 옷을 만들어 봐는가? 예, 해봤습니다. It has a great meaning for the people, of the people, and by the people. Everything would be built and done in the city under the teachings of the great leader.
It was 1962 when Dresnok was last in America. Kennedy was president, gas was 31 cents a gallon, and man was 7 years away from landing on the moon.
아이만 있으면 장난을 많이 하죠. 아이, 말 말라요. 개와 고양이입니다. 아들은 어느 학교에 다닙니까? 외국어 대학. 3학년. 무슨 말을 배워요? 영어. 대나무 주교하지 않은 모양입니다. 아, 난 뭐, 글쎄, 좀 편안하면 이것은 심심풀이. 심심풀이입니까? 그럼. Everyone has to adapt themselves to their life. It's no difference than a man in society, a young man. He goes in the military. But in the military, you don't have no freedom. You're on duty 24 hours a day, and you have to adapt yourself to the organizational life. So it's the same with leaving one country and going to another country. One has to adapt himself. At first, you might find it rather difficult, but as a little times pass, it's not so hard a thing to do.
Korea is the Cold War's final frontier. Panmunjom, its most visible symbol of continued division. Here, along the Korean demilitarized zone, nearly 2 million soldiers still face each other, ready for war at any time. The DMZ was described by President Clinton as the scariest place on Earth.
Fuck President Clinton. Oh.
In 1950, Korea experienced at firsthand the brutal realities of the Cold War, a clash of ideologies that would devastate the peninsula and divide it to this day.
Listen to the way they frame this.
The Korean War was one of the most vicious of the 20th century. An estimated 4 million people, many of them civilians, were killed in 3 years of fighting. The U.S. led the support for the South, whilst the North was backed by the Red Alliance of the Soviet Union and newly communist China. Hostilities ended with Korea still split along the 38th parallel, but a peace treaty has never been signed. The Korean War became known in the West as the Forgotten War. In North Korea, it is the victorious Fatherland Liberation War. The war left an indelible stain on the psyche of both sides. In North Korea, the indiscriminate bombing and tales of atrocities by the U.S. were seen as examples of the aggressive and criminal nature of U.S. imperialism. In the West,
that's not supposed to be
counter
true?
stories of atrocities on civilians and mistreatment of prisoners of war was proof of the evils of communism. The gruesome experience of Korea confirmed to many in the U.S.
They accuse the North of mistreating prisoners of war. Give me a fucking break. While at the same time, the U.S. and the South, their puppet regime in the South, were literally massacring fucking people.
That the spread of communism was to be prevented at all costs. Throughout the 1950s, the inherent duty of every honorable American was to be anti-communist.
This is Side Views on the News.
U.S. treats POWs good. We all know this. There's no such thing as Guantanamo Bay. What are you talking about, GMO?
C.T. Overstreet, who is the
That
foster
doesn't
father
exist.
of James Joseph Dresnach, the 20-year-old PFC who reportedly, or we probably should say allegedly, has defected to the North Korean Communists.
What can you say after 43 years? I remember it very well.
What kind of a boy was he growing up?
He was a normal boy, average boy. Sometimes he was mischievous, but you could always find a tear of repentance in his eye.
I was the son of a worker's family. My father was a worker, my mother was a housewife, and they fought like cats and dogs. She wanted to be free, so we left. She stayed in the bars and on the streets day and night. We slept, eat, and drank everything in the backseat of the car.
They found her.
Flat.
We returned back to Richmond. My father had to find a wife to take care of 2 children. So he sent my brother to my grandfather lived. He went there and I went to my aunt's house. They didn't really want me. So I kept running away. I wanted to go home. They told my aunt, there's no need for you to take care of him anymore. You will take him home this Sunday. I walked in the house. This new wife hollered, oh, you ain't have but one son. Where did this one come from? They have an old folks home in the city itself, and they took me there. My father told me he would be back, but I never saw him again. Never laid my eyes on him. And then my orphan life began, which was a living hell. I learned one thing, wherever I went, it was still the same. I wanted to run away. I wanted to go far. So I stole about $20 and a bicycle. I was taken to court. I was on parole for 6 years. A juvenile delinquency school was not considered suitable for me. Wait a minute. This is Glen Island, Virginia. Old man Overstreet's house.
Joe was not an adopted child.
But you raised him for a number of years.
Yes, as we have many others.
He came into the home and I was appointed his buddy. And went upstairs, showed him where his bed would be, where he could put his clothes. And we just hit it off. I really didn't know yet why we hit it off so well.
That's Sonny Jeter. How people can change.
Mr. Overstreet told me that he was affectionately known to his foster children as Big Papa, and I think we can certainly appreciate that.
Big Papa was a Presbyterian preacher. He opened his home to these kids, and we really had nowhere else to go. He was fair, stern. If you did wrong, you got punished. But back in the 50s, everybody got punished. That's hard to explain.
That makes it right.
Be young and have absolutely nothing. Nothing. He had nothing really to call his own but what was on his back. And he may have just taken them off somebody's clothesline just to have some on his back.
Joe has been carefully raised to be a full-fledged American. He was bitter against communism, and that as long as he lived, he wanted to fight communism.
Well, thankfully he changed his mind there.
Dresnach was not only a child of the Cold War, but also a child of the South. He enlisted for military service on his 17th birthday.
The Army at that point was the only option for a kid with little or no education, living in the circumstances in which he found himself. The military in general is a place in which an awful lot of kids in Dresnach's situation have found their salvation, have found their way. And it provides a father figure for kids who lack that.
I thought I'd be a freer
That's not
man,
a good thing.
But really, you're not. It's tighter.
I said, Joe, it's going to get straightened out now. At least in the military, he could get some training, some education. I thought he was really on the way. I think he did today.
On leave from basic training, Dresnach proposed to a girl he recently met in church. Marriage would help erase the memories of his childhood abandonment.
Getting married, good idea. So I went out.
The tragedy is that this guy doesn't know he did the base thing in the end.
Joe in his army uniform, Big Pop, the master of the ceremony.
Yes, that's where I married Kathleen Marie Ringwood.
I thought it was the marriage. Okay, Joe's got that mate. He's got what he needs. Sure wish it had.
Dresnach soon received orders to his posting in West Germany. By the time he returned, he discovered that 2 years serving his country overseas had taken its toll on his marriage.
Sorry, Joe. I got me a new lover.
Hey, Shakespeare, welcome, comrade.
2 years I didn't put my hands on a prostitute or any girl. For the simple fact that I loved her.
She ran off. I think she took his heart with her. I think he was just totally brokenhearted.
I'm only glad of one thing. She didn't become pregnant. Why I swore in my life.
All is well here, Shakespeare. Hope all is well with you.
With his marriage over, Dresnach immediately re-enlisted. In May 1962, he was posted to South Korea.
The time I left Richmond, I was fed up. I didn't want nothing. If I died or lived, I didn't care.
The Korean War, still fresh in everyone's memories, had to all intents and purposes never ended. The armistice had established the demilitarized zone, the DMZ, a 2.5-mile deep buffer filled with landmines that ran the 150-mile width of Korea, cutting off north from south. But the peace remained fragile, and mutual hatred continued to exist along the 38th parallel. It seemed inevitable that sooner or later one side would invade and enforce its system and ideology on the other. Long before Vietnam, Korea was the Cold War's frontline flashpoint in Asia and America's most visible commitment in the war on communism.
I had always thought that the fighting had stopped, but I found out on the DMZ it didn't. They were still going at it.
The DMZ was a war zone. I mean, there were regular incursions across that line by the North Koreans, and people were getting killed. At the time that Dresnach was there, the hazards to someone walking the line were very real.
We were being attacked at night by North Koreans, throw hand grenades at us and so forth. The forage in the DMZ made it very difficult because the bad guys would come within grenade range. You'd never know they were there until the grenade went off.
This was what it was, engineer tape, a little wider. That said, okay, you're on this side, you're on the south, you're on that side, you're on the north. And that's all we had. And that's how you walked your patrols. When the North Koreans felt in a bad mood or they wanted to see if they could inflict any punishment, they would change it. They would take the tape and move it back, or maybe even move it forward. And that way, if they shot you, they could say, hey, he was on our side, he was here.
You lived, slept, ate, and trained.
How about U.S. get out of Korea?
During your A week, you'd be on ambush
the way
patrols.
these people talk, these soldiers that were there,
during that week.
That didn't affect.
During B week, we'd man about 6 outposts, 24 hours a day, backed up with the reaction force. During C week, we'd train. Had one day off, then we'd start all over again.
South Korea was a desperately poor country, struggling to rebuild after the devastation of war. For GIs, there was little variety during non-duty hours. Most invariably spent their time in local villages, where the entertainment was aimed at Americans with dollars to spend.
They all had a girlfriend down in the Ville, and these little ladies of the night would entertain them at any time. So their big thing was get off duty and get down to the village.
You're gonna live good, you gotta live it up. And that's where all my money went. After being divorced, I tried to make up every minute and every second that I didn't spend with my wife.
In Last Chance Village, across the river, there were more women than we had men in our entire battalion. There were more prostitutes. The commanding general in our welcoming speech from him said, look at the man on your left, now look at the man on your right. He says, those two men are going to have VD before they leave Korea. Which was about right. That's what the VD rate was running.
Yep, and that didn't stop. Like the U.S. military, I mean, they're still like that there. Yeah,
I'd been serving on
more
the
reasons why they
state
should leave.
outposts for 2 weeks without any rest, and they decided to let us go to the village and have some fun. According to the company commander, it was only the stakeout NCO to go on pass.
Dresnok needed to talk to me. He was in love with the young woman down in the Ville.
There was one girl, very nice, good looking, and just the average relations.
I said, well, whatever it is, Dresnok, you can't go. I'm not going to replace you. You got these guys depending on you.
Well, he gave me the hard lip. He's an officer. I just went down and made my own slip again, signed my post sergeant's signature, forgery, and I went on pass.
The next morning, about 7, the first sergeant came in and said, Dresnok was in the village last night. So I said, have Dresnok in my office at 8 o'clock. Dresnok comes in, and, you know, he was a nice-looking big guy and had a boyish grin. He looks at me and he says, you know, sir, you can't do anything to me. I said, pardon me? He said, no, you can't touch me. He said, I had a pass. I said, Dresnok, be back here at 3 o'clock. We're going to read the charge sheets, and I fully intended to court-martial him.
Hey, there's the orphan, the poor boy. You ain't shit. What am I? Am I a slave? To hell with this. I was fed up with my childhood, my marriage, my military life.
Mirrors that person that crossed
Everything
just a little while ago, honestly.
There's only one place to go. On August 15th at noon, in broad daylight, when everybody was eating lunch, I hit the road. Yes, I was afraid. Am I going to live or die? Everybody wants to live. If I say I did not, lying. But at that time, life wasn't so precious. And when I stepped into the minefield and I seen it with my own eyes, I started sweating.
You don't say.
I crossed over, looking for my new life. Dresnok, come back. Go to hell, son of a bitches, and I let one round fly, but it wouldn't go that far nohow. But it scared the shit out of him because he hit the ground.
I got a call from Battle Group. They said,
oh yeah, but only the north side shoots, right?
He was carrying a shotgun, and he was going along, and he'd pick this up and he'd fire. And I said, was he a real big guy? He said, yeah.
서대장 동지로부터 우리 분대가 전투 진지에 진입할 때 대한 명령을 내렸습니다.
I walked at a very fast speed, and I moved right on through.
그러면서 키높은 그 세차밭으로 유인자가 우리 쪽으로 지금 오고 있다고 이렇게 보고가 됐습니다.
I got my rear end up the trail. I found the outpost for the Korean People's Army and I followed it.
점점 들어오기 시작합니다. 그래서 그때 분대장 동지가 앞으로 때문에 썰썰같이 나가서 이제 나가보니까 아이 저 포위하니까 이거 보니까 뜻밖에도 미국놈이었습니다.
I was worried. Why? Maybe someone
Who's an
would be
American
trigger
bastard.
길에서 그지 총처를 뜨고 보고 정말 난도질하고픈 그런 생각이 이제 벼 같은데 나하고 이 미국놈들한테 부모를 다 잃은 그런 사람이기 때문에 그저 죽이려고 이제 칠 것인가 이게 어떻게 할 것인가. 근데 우리 분대장들과 자제하라. 어쨌든 체포했으니까. 그래서 그런 감정을 좀 누르고 있었습니다.
blindfolded me right then, tied me right then, and up the hill we went.
Holy fuck.
Well, I figured at some time he was going to come back and he was going to claim that he was hunting.
That guy had some
self-control
for fuck's sake.
So I thought, if he comes back with that lame excuse, I'm going to hang him. I'm going to court-martial that guy when he comes back. Well, how long's that been now? 43 years?
They put me in a room, I don't know what it was. Couldn't see. I was there for one day, then I come to Pena. Of course, under guard. At that stage, I was a POW. I went into interrogation immediately. I hadn't been in South Korea long enough to know that much. The only thing I could tell them, which they already knew, was the position of the company or administration or personnel. I could tell them that. Atomic weapons and where, I know they're there, but where they're at, I didn't know. The interrogation went for quite a while. Then they realized, oh, it's true. He wasn't there long enough to know it.
As hellish as North Korea looks from the outside to folks now, the demonization of the place back then was so complete that to make that leap was just, it's inconceivable.
It's not demonized now? Is that what you're saying? Who the fuck is that guy?
North Korea was viewed by the U.S. as a puppet of the Soviet Union. The country was led by a revolutionary who was committed to reunifying Korea, by force if necessary. Here he was known and revered as Comrade Kim Il.
Calling DPRK a puppet while actually maintaining control of South Korea's military.
Sung, the great leader, his presence was everywhere. Kim Il-sung declared that the U.S. was the illegal occupier of South Korea and the sworn enemy of the Korean people.
True.
Dresnok was isolated and in the hands of a people unswerving in their hatred of the U.S. He was surrounded by anti-American...
I love that. Their hatred of the U.S. But look at what it translates to here. Let's overthrow U.S. imperialism. Even their fucking propaganda contradicts itself.
He was surrounded by anti-American imagery. Nothing here resembled the life he had left behind.
Dresnok. Who the hell's calling me? I opened my eyes. I didn't believe myself. I shut them again. I must be dreaming. I opened them again and looked, and who in the hell are you? He says, I'm Apsher. Apsher? I don't know no Apsher. He says, Larry Allen Apsher. You didn't see in the newspapers? Oh, yes, now I remember. Absher grew up with family problems similar to mine, but the elder people that were taking care of him supported him very good. He had a little trouble in South Korea with marijuana. He was caught on it 5 or 6 times. He always had VD. They were going to court-martial him or kick him out of the army. He was fed up with the social life too, I guess. Instead of going back to his old life, he'd just come over to DPRK.
Private Absher's defection in May 1962 was the first by an American since the Korean War. 3 months later, he was joined by Private First Class Dresnok. Embarrassingly for the U.S. Army, the two men became minor celebrities in North Korea. But even worse was to follow in December 1963, when Specialist 4 Jerry Wayne Parrish from Henderson, Kentucky, simply disappeared from a routine border patrol.
Parrish, he had family problems too. He had a stepfather which was an alcoholic. He always beat the mother and the children. And the stepfather thought he was having sexual relation with his stepsister, which was, he said, a lie. And he told him if I ever come home, he'd kill him. I figure he got the information on Absher and myself crossing over. And he said, well, if they're happy, I guess he could be happy too.
3 GIs had now defected to the communists in 18 months. Publicly, the U.S. Army absolved itself of responsibility for these defections. These men were low-ranking soldiers from poor backgrounds and broken homes who had been unable to adapt to life in the military.
Yeah, so who cares?
But the North Koreans saw an opportunity. With each defection, they had acquired a higher rank. Their military council now raised the stakes, proclaiming that financial rewards awaited those willing to bring weapons and information over. In January 1965, Sergeant Charles Robert Jenkins, a non-commissioned officer from Rich Square, North Carolina,
this guy's a shit disturber.
abandoned the nighttime patrol he was leading and took his M14 rifle to North Korea. The North Koreans could never have imagined that 4 soldiers of the hated imperialist enemy would voluntarily and separately cross to their side in such a short period of time. The defection of an officer was presented to the North Korean population as proof of communism's superiority over U.S. imperialism.
Cinnamon. Yeah. Me too. I can do it, I swear.
바로 미군의 남조선 강점이 있다고 말하고 미리 침략적 투행을 통로했습니다.
When I seen Jenkins in the newspaper the first time, I said, now why does an old sergeant like him come to North Korea? He looked like a grandfather. His wrinkles were deep from the time he was young. And come to find out, he wasn't but a year older than myself.
By deserting the army, all 4 men had, whether they intended to or not, signed up to the communist cause.
Bum, bum, bum.
Their decision to defect may have been taken spontaneously, but the act was irreversible.
Good.
But what could these Americans, who had all dropped out of high school, possibly contribute to the socialist revolution?
Yeah, we'll see what happens
These were
there.
People that were golden.
And they were talking about sending forces in
blowing
from
them
somewhere.
up as if these were people who saw the light and wanted to live under the mantle of Kim Il-sung's leadership. The U.S. government, I think, was very sensitive about this. They did not want publicity on these guys, and they still don't. I mean, I don't think now it's a conscious thing, but in the 60s, I think it was quite conscious to play down and hide these defections because they were more embarrassing to the United States than you might think.
North Korea
were the rights made by our president.
We could hear the loudspeakers with Dresnok talking.
U.S. officially has 1,000 troops there, so probably more.
That he would do this and turn on the whole United States Army.
Fuck you,
Good morning,
bud.
Nathan, Ninth Cab. Come over to North Korea. We'll give you everything. You know, we'll give you money. We'll give you women. You'll have everything.
Every day or every week, we would hear him. He was telling us, you know, he had a lot of girls, you know, and they were treating him like royalty. And we knew it was lies. But the younger kids that just got out of basic and they were 18 really took it for heart. And we were afraid that some
Look
of
at the
them
flag behind this guy.
might actually say, hey, this is a good life. Let's go over.
The defectors became integral cogs in a propaganda machine, producing a barrage of anti-U.S. material that was sent across the DMZ to GIs in the South.
It was obviously somebody had written that script for him. He was putting on a real line of shit. He found La La Land.
Listen to the code.
Communists and North Koreans would use people for what they could get out of them. I'm no smarter than any other soldier, but I was smart enough to know going there wasn't the answer. All you were going to do is be a slave.
We took great pride in it. If the people look at it with the sunshades off, they say, oh, it's really true.
Ding dong.
The propaganda campaign may have seemed an innocuous offense to the defectors, but if they returned to the U.S., they faced lengthy prison terms for desertion and aiding the enemy. The four men soon began to wonder whether they had made the biggest mistake of their lives.
Did they?
Could they really stay in North Korea, this alien communist land, indefinitely? Was their way of life simply incompatible?
I was a little uncomfortable. A different race, a different color, different customs, a different ideology.
Christian Slater, GMO.
I was afraid that they wouldn't let me say what I really wanted to say. The uneasiness of the way people look at me when I walk down the street. Oh, there
yes,
goes that American bastard. And it give me the ass.
They hated Americans for the bombing campaigns, for atrocities that were carried out in the North. And they hated them on a racial basis. They have a unique, homogeneous population, namely they're Koreans, and they're the best people in the world. And everyone else is just...
Here's where Bruce Cummings gets way off the fucking rails, and he can go fuck himself.
Judged by the fact that they're not Korean. And I can imagine in the 60s that these defectors were surprised to find out the level of hatred of Americans. On the other hand, here are these prized defectors that the North Koreans make a huge propaganda campaign out of. You would think they would treat them like kings.
I didn't want to stay. I didn't think I could adapt.
In 1966, four Americans tried to escape North Korea and, at enormous risk, collectively sought asylum at the Soviet embassy. If the Soviets accepted them, they hoped to be sent to Russia. If they refused, the consequences were too dire to contemplate.
You were reading his Korea's Place in the Sun book last night? Yeah. Bruce Cummings, he has some okay stuff, but honestly, at the end of the day, he's like anti-imperialist, but he's still fucking like racist and takes these orientalist positions about a lot of different things. Like what he was just saying there about that whole fucking cleanest race bullshit is what he's citing there is actually complete nonsense. And it's made up by this Brian Myers guy. You can find the information for it right there in that link I just left. But like, just for example, I'll give you give you a good quote. There's one good one here. Yeah, like here it is right here. The excellence of our nation that we emphasize has nothing in common with the racism or national chauvinism. We do not assert that the Koreans' biological constitution is more developed than those of other races. Defining the superiority of a nation according to biological or ethnic characteristics is the practice of reactionary bourgeois ethnology. Reactionary racism and national chauvinism, which were used by imperialists as ideological instruments of aggression and domination, have been rejected by progressive humanity. Our nation first idea, which is thoroughly opposed to reactionary racism, national chauvinism, cosmopolitanism, not only values the good traits of different nations, but also respects the independence of other nations. So it's all based on that this B.R. Myers this Brian Myers book. Again, I linked it in chat there, so if you ever see that come up, you can be sure that it's based completely on this lie that somehow Kim Il-sung carried on with what the Japanese imperialists were trying to inflict on them, which is total nonsense. And that's what the U.S. tried to set up in the South.
We thought, because they were white people too, they would accept. The Russians didn't treat us good. What the hell you come here for? And they tried to persuade us to stay in North Korea. They notified the Korean government. The personnel came.
That's what, and see, that's why I'm saying Bruce Cummings sometimes is good stuff, but the fact that he's citing like that type of shit is very fucking telling, I think, of his overall worldview.
You Russians can take on that. I didn't believe the Korean government would punish us for that. They'd educate me more. The great leader, Comrade Kim Il-sung, said, "We will take them along with us to communism." They might be a different race, they might be a different color, but God damn it, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna learn their way of life. I did everything I could, learning the language, learning the customs, learning their greetings, their life. I gotta think like this, I gotta act like this. I've studied their Juche ideal, their revolutionary history, their lofty virtues about the great leader. I studied most of the Workers' Party's policies. Regular studies the same as a Korean. They would be completely responsible for our life. The one thing I really accepted was man is the master of his life. I agreed with this version of the Juche ideal. This was rather touching. Little by little, I've become to understand the Korean people.
I love how he says, as he studied and everything, he became to understand. AKA, he got radicalized.
Although at the time economically ahead of the South, North Korea remained a developing country, and living conditions lagged far behind America. All involvement in propaganda was suspended following the incident at the Soviet embassy. Confined to their own private world, they began to wonder if they had outlived their usefulness, and if they had no value, they had no future. Several minders from the Korean People's Army were assigned to them. These political guides could verify their continued education.
As far as living the life like a Korean at that time, it was rather ridiculous. They told us the best thing in personal safety right now until the people begin to understand you and you be able to understand our people is to live a rather restricted type of life. We didn't live in barbed wire fences, and we didn't have guards. Our guides would come and leave. You can say, actually, he was like a servant. Of course, he's the party servant. He always tells us, anything you feel you need or you want to do, just let me know, and he'll arrange it.
But they still treated them like...
The first years, we didn't do nothing.
Yeah,
the
even on
standard
probation.
Was fishing and drinking parties.
Understandable probation.
We read some books, novels, the works of the great leader. We go out in the river and take our swims, lay in the sun and smoke our cigarettes. We always talk about home. It's funny, everyone leaves home, the first thing they sit down and talk about is home. When we go out, we're gentlemen. Dress like a gentleman, act like a gentleman. There were no joking or laughing. We kept our mouths shut. Listening to foreign broadcasts is infiltration of foreign culture. I might ask one of the guides what's going on in the outside world. If he wanted to tell me, he would tell me. If he didn't, then it didn't disturb me, not at all.
The world they had left behind was changing beyond recognition. But the Americans were cut off, with little to do but study the works of Kim Il-sung and government policy.
Good.
From this isolation emerged the inherent flaws in their friendship.
Everyone got along good until in 1965, when Jenkins come over, everything went to his clique. He tried to push everyone around like he was pulling rank in the army.
Of course, he was the sergeant, right? That. Everybody else was private.
Friends with him immediately. I don't go through that. I'd taken my uniform off when I crossed the line. I didn't consider myself military no more. And nobody, I don't care who he was, he's not coming up to me and tell me I'll do this and I'll do that. I didn't kiss nobody's ass, and I wasn't kissing his. They threw me out for Jenkins. Let them be like they are. I told them, in the future you're gonna realize they only didn't live long enough to realize the truth. One day he tried to push me around with his so-called rank. When there was 2 blows, I hit him and he hit the ground. He wanted to attack me back, but I think the slap on the face was enough to settle him down. I'd rather not make any more statements on Jenkins. The more I think about him, the more I get the ass.
By 1972, the Americans' re-education
he was the one
was considered
sergeant out of
advanced
all of
enough
them
to be granted North Korean citizenship. In return for
I'd rather not make any more statements on Jenkins. The more I think about him, the more I get the ass.
The more I get the ass.
By 1972, the Americans' re-education was considered advanced enough to be granted North Korean citizenship. In return for the state allocating them housing, food rations.
So they literally just admitted the state gave them citizenship, so that discounts Bruce Cummings' statement about it being an ethno-state. So, aka, get fucked, Bruce, with your white supremacist bullshit.
And transportation. They would now go into society and work for the revolution. Their biggest contribution came in 1978, with their starring roles in a propaganda film epic set in the Korean War, which would transform their standing in North Korea from hated Americans to national heroes.
Gonna get some dirty old deep propaganda lies here soon, so strap in, folks.
I never thought of ever playing in a movie. First of all, I thought I didn't have the talent, though I found out I could meet the demands of the director.
적을 형성하려면 내 자신이 그만큼 우리 인민을 더 열렬히 사랑하고 저 자신이 그 애국심이 불타야 자기 그 적을 훌륭히 형성할 수 있다. 이건 우리 경례하는 장군님께서 일찍이 우리 영화 예술론에서 저희들에게 가르쳐 주신 그런 말씀입니다.
Kim Jong-il loved filmmaking.
The general was Kim Jong-il, Kim Il-sung's son and future successor, who took a particular interest in movies. According to Kim Jong-il's published guidance, cinematic art could only be created if it developed revolutionary consciousness among the people.
Based.
Nameless Heroes was a
find the problem there, please.
Prime example of Kim Jong-il's cinematic art, released over a 3-year period and 20 parts long. This iconic film depicts Americans as evil schemers, South Koreans as their puppets, and the North Korean agents as heroes, battling against them all towards the ultimate victory.
I don't consider it a propaganda movie. Why? It's based on the main facts of a man who carried out his espionage activities in South Korea. So, in order to catch this man, every means possible were used.
The enemy, 적이다.
I took great honor in doing it.
Mr. Yudum, you've got
The 4 Americans were each assigned a character. Absher was Carl, a subordinate to 2 evil Americans. Parrish was Lewis, a British officer who detested the imperialist occupation of his native Northern Ireland. Jenkins was Kelton, the evil mastermind, and Dresnok was Arthur Cockstud, the brutal commander of a POW camp.
We have to watch this.
Arthur Cockstud is one that had to be done, and I was willing to do it.
I'm pleased to meet y'all here.
당신들을 여기에서 만나게 된 것을 대단히 기쁘게 생각합니다.
Interrogation, torturing, cross-questioning, and if necessary, to shoot him dead.
Yay! Luis!
He'd like being in the movies.
Parrish and myself were the best 2. Absher, he freezes a little. He's a little stiff in his acting. Jenkins, he did a good job in that last part.
Is that so?
They picked the right man, a cunning son of a bitch. That way he carried out the role perfectly. I don't believe I could do.
Many more acting roles followed for the defectors. Typecast as evil Americans, they became stars of the North Korean silver screen. To this day, Dresnok is known in North Korea as Arthur, his Nameless Heroes character's name. Absher would not share in the success. In 1983, he died of a heart attack. He was just 40 years old. Despite their common backgrounds, the 3 remaining defectors were growing apart. Dresnok and Parrish could converse in Korean, but Jenkins could rarely make himself understood. Their friendship was fraught, especially because Jenkins, having brought an M14 to North Korea, was entitled to more rations.
Oh,
but the popularity of Nameless Heroes had changed their lives.
You know that's bullshit.
By playing evil Americans, they had adhered.
He brought an M14, so entitled to more fucking rations. My
to the
God.
Cinematic art demanded by Kim Jong-il. They'd established their revolutionary credentials.
It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
The hardest part is so much wonder. Always wondering. Where are you, Joe? I do this rambling to myself a lot when I'm alone. If I'm cutting the grass or something, I get to think about Joe, and I'll ramble just like this to myself. Still wondering why. I cannot know why, but just until he tells me, I'll never know why. But Joe, I miss him. I wish he'd come here and talk to me. I really do.
This guy just can't get over it. He loves Joe.
Happy birthday, dear Tony. Happy birthday to you.
Ooh, Tony.
Happy birthday, Ching Ching. Okay. Good boy you are. Drink up, boys. We like a simple birthday. We don't believe in rushing to restaurants and trying to make something fancy. We're simple people and we like a simple life. The birthday is not the very important thing in life. The most important thing is for people to be satisfied with their life and to lead a happy life.
Bam. Gonna get into some gonna get into some imperialist propaganda real soon, so be ready. This is BBC after all.
I've taught in a foreign language college in 1986. I poured all my knowledge and effort to help them, to teach them. Some other places in the educational fields, they invite me to give a lecture once in a while. I'm not very educated, so I gave mainly conversation and hearing lectures. 우리의 빠른 과학과 기술과 함께 더 많은 원천들을 찾아내야 한다.
We must find out more research with science and technology.
This is Pyongyang University of Foreign Studies. And foreign language to someone who would like to study foreign countries is like a weapon to a soldier. 70 or 80% of all the information stored in the electronic media is stored in English. So for scientists and for those people who want to keep up with the latest change, it is essential to have a good command of English language.
It's true, she was kidnapped from Japan, put in a bag, put in a small motorboat.
Now there's a part missing, so.
And she was carried from there to.
But they talk about this person being kidnapped from Japan.
Her and Jenkins, they got along good. Hagen was a kind of woman that could adapt herself. Her biggest problem was her husband got old and she wasn't satisfied. And he's too stupid to know it, but nobody ever told him. I think you know what I mean. One night we were dancing. Jenkins, he seen me run my fingers into her pants. And from then on, we were, you had to look out. Only my fingers about that far down. Till that time, she'd come to our house and visit, and we'd talk, and we'd drink coffee, and play cards, listen to music, drink wine. But after that, no.
24 years after her abduction, Jenkins' wife was allowed to return to Japan. She refused to go back to North Korea. It transpired that she had been kidnapped in a bizarre plot to have North Korean spies trained in Japanese language and customs. As a deserter from the U.S. Army, Jenkins faced extradition and prosecution if he ever set foot in Japan. He remained in Pyongyang with their daughters.
He only had one thing in his mind. I've got to get there. How am I going to get there?
The family separation became a major political issue in Japan. During this time, Dresnok introduced Jenkins to our film crew.
This is my friend, Charles Robert Jenkins. I've known him for a very long time.
This is my friend, James Joseph Dresnok, and I've known him for 39 years.
This was Jenkins' first contact with Westerners since his defection in 1965. He had no idea when or even if he would see his wife again. The North Korean authorities considered this initial meeting too sensitive to be filmed, but he was also keen to tell his story.
Right. If it don't work as good, I am going to put this in newspapers all over the world. I'm happy where I am retired. 60 years old, have a big party, hung out, and I finished. But what's good, in North Korea, they didn't even cut my money. And they give me more rations. It's true.
Really?
Privately, the Americans admitted they were not close friends.
I don't like him when he's drinking. He gets his mouth running and never stops. He sits there and he dreams up things about the government. At first I say, yay, yay, yay. Not to say I agree with you. He told it to our guide. He said, Dresnok has the same opinion I have. I told him, what? And they believed him because he was so sincere in everything. He tried to shoot us down, make us look low, and build himself up. The old American saying is, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me.
The governments of Japan and North Korea finally agreed for the Jenkins family to meet in Indonesia, which had no extradition treaty with the United States. They had been separated for 2 years.
He was already told, if he stays in Korea, he stays in Korea. If he goes to Japan, he goes to Japan. The Korean government doesn't care. When he went to Indonesia, he promised the Korean government that he was going to return. Got there, stayed with her a few days, and he's going to Japan.
Upon his arrival in Tokyo, Jenkins was immediately hospitalized, and Japanese public sympathy grew. Japanese Prime Minister Koizumi personally urged President Bush to be lenient on Jenkins.
Bush.
But with U.S. soldiers serving and dying in Iraq and Afghanistan, leniency for a deserter was considered unlikely.
Bye-bye, baby. Who cares?
Before turning himself in, Jenkins played his final card, an exclusive interview with an American journalist.
The motivation for doing an interview was to say, here's what my life was like in North Korea. He wanted them to be lenient on him in a criminal case.
Dresnok was interviewed 1 week
do you think,
after
how
the article was
trustworthy do you
published
think his
and had
testimony
no
is,
idea
knowing that?
its content.
Tell me exactly what the news is. If he makes allegations against me that aren't true, then I must condemn him. This is beyond belief. No, I believe. I believe he would say and act like this.
When he would do something that the North Korean government would not like, he said Dresnok would beat him. He's big, he's a beater. He likes to beat people.
Who here could dream of possibly tying up a man and beating him? I can count every fight on one hand. Huh?
Charles described this as more than 30 times over the course of those years.
He's alive. He's trying to save his ass. I hope he gets as much time in prison as he claims I beat his ass.
He had a tattoo on his arm of 2 crossed rifles with the words U.S. Army below it, and he said that
okay, Yeonmi, American Yeonmi.
The U.S. Army out of his arm without anesthesia.
Ain't nobody by force.
The North Koreans had allegedly held European and Middle Eastern people against their will, and those people had had children, and those children were going to be used in North Korea's spy program.
No. Breed spies? No, this is ridiculous, quite ridiculous. Do you think the Korean government would make our children spies?
We can speculate having agents that don't look Korean but have allegiance to the regime would be of value.
Oh my God.
I'm truly sorry my friends who have passed away are not here to see this. He surrendered to the Korean People's Army. Now he's surrendering back to the Americans. I don't have intentions of leaving. Don't give a shit if you put $1 billion of gold on the table. I'd like to kill a son of a bitch.
Young lady's not so good. I was rather good. Not very good, but rather good. But now, my legs ache so much. The older you get, the more you think about your home place and your childhood. But you see, my childhood wasn't very pleasant. I never went to a movie. I never went bowling, but now I enjoy my weekends and my holidays without no worries whatsoever. Very good. You want me to give you a medal? I was sitting here a while ago thinking about Jenkins. I've never seen a man that makes a mistake that doesn't think about his past. I kind of feel sorry for him, but he could be here with us. Now I think he's behind bars, not enjoying nothing. His future is not so bright, and he'll think about here, no doubt in my mind. I'm sure his children would enjoy it very much today. I feel sorry for them more than anyone. They have no future. Here they had a future. He won't forget us. I'm ready to show the world at any time that it isn't what he says.
I think you know Alice in Wonderland. Well, I just wonder if it's not Jenkins in Wonderland. I don't accept his statements whatsoever. If you look at my arm, I have a scar here. I had a naked woman here. It showed the breast and the hair on the, as you know. This is not suitable here in the socialist society. And I made my own decision. I went to the hospital, I had it cut off. Here I have another American Army tattoo. I had U.S. here too. I run around in the Korean society with U.S. on my arm. No, my conscience didn't prevail this. And I decided. No one decided for me. And no one decided for him. He did it himself.
Upon his release from prison, Jenkins joined his wife on the Japanese island from where she had been kidnapped. It was a love story that had captivated the public in Japan. His autobiography was published, but only in Japanese. Jenkins continued to speak of his miserable life in North Korea, of beatings by Dresnok, of his children being groomed to be spies. Dresnok's sole source of knowledge of these allegations was through our film crew.
As far as the Kim Jong-il's regime, could anybody say anything good about it other than a few stooges? It's a socialist country system of exploiting and oppressing their people.
Everyone has opinions, we say in America. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. So, get the right opinion. Learn this, man, and you'll find what I'm telling the world is the truth. Honey, what's this? What's this? He lit for me. I go to the doctor when it's necessary. Right now, this doctor is necessary. Cheers up.
For your health.
Sometimes you say, like, you don't want me to live too long. Hurry up and get out of the way, huh? But,
It's impossible.
I'm planning on staying for quite a while yet. He makes me feel good, but I'm too old and wore out. I'm getting old quick. The heart has a while to go yet. I'm just worried mainly about the flow of blood in my legs because it's very black, the blood, and I have a lot of trouble with my legs, a lot of pain. Anyhow, I'll try to live to be 80 at least.
Here he has another wife and a child. Proud of him for that. I just wish they'd have been here in America. Yeah, I wonder if he's eating good. I wonder if he's healthy. I want to have their health care. He's getting good health care.
Please don't film me now. 안녕하십니까.
아이고, 안녕하십니까.
오래간만입니다. 네.
두레준하고 선생은 제가 그저 외래적으로 치료해서 보면 만성호혈성 심장 질환으로 가지고 있고 그로 인해서 협심증. 대체로 심장 질환 환자들 보면 이거 생활 습성이 많이 관련된단 말입니다. 그래서 이거 담배나 술. 근데 두레준학부 선생이 좀 담배를 좀 즐겨한단 말입니다. 근데 우리도 많이 이거 외래적으로 오면 이거 말씀대로 담배를 끊으라 또 많이 이야기는 하는데.
오케이.
최근에 아픈 증상이 뭐 있습니까?
네, 있습니다. 특히 오후에. 활동 많이 하면 그렇고,
네.
그래서 가만히 있으면 이렇고.
현재로서는 약물 쓰면서는 딱 크게 다른 거 없는데 이제 이자 같은 섭생 관리가 잘 안 되고 약물을 규칙적으로 좀 쓰지 않으면 그 뭐 또 약물을 끊거나 이렇게 되면 뭐 어느 순간에 무슨이 이게 뭐 경색으로 이행될지 그건 장담 못한단 말입니다.
I learned fishing first with nets. It's against the law, so you sneak around. But we, being foreigners, usually the policeman, he close his eyes and look the other direction. If you're a member of the fishing club, there's no problem, you have a permit. If you don't have it, I heard it cost about 51. Fine. And he'll fine you and run you home. Or you can pay the 51, and if you keep your mouth shut, you can sit there and continue to fish. You can say my permit is my face. But I listened to my teacher.
That's hilarious.
That it would have been a little different, I believe.
James is precious.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I always tell my sons that if they're going to study, study. The study is their future. Knowledge is power. And want them to be in good jobs. Not to be a illiterate old man like me.
God damn it, Joe.
아소 선생님
Tugging at the old heartstrings.
한잔 하라.
한잔 합시다 그 말이야.
탔어. 나 어제 밤에 너무 많이 먹었어. 좋잖아.
야, 뭐 100길짜리 한 수 뭐 케이지 같은 걸 사가셔야겠다. 야, 아소 선생님 한 잔만 또 하라요. 뭐.
좋잖은데.
아, 이거 이 소리야.
His friends
술
are.
줘도 이렇게 또 취하면 집에 들어가면
내 오고 가.
우리 섹시는 또 야란치 가서.
야란치 가서. 아이고.
제일 좋은 안주. You see, my liver's full of fat. He said that if I die, it's going to be because of my liver.
Okay.
Not because of my heart. 고소하죠? 이게 바로 조선식이다 말이야. 조선식이라고.
아이들랑 아줌마를 데려오죠.
난 거기 집에 갈 때 시끄러운 거 싫어합니다.
여산에 올 때 한번 다 같이 데려오라요. 멋있게 한번 놀자요.
Feel good already. I still remember the Arduous March. Because of the sanctions and blockation of the American government and the Japanese, these thousands, I think, are hundreds of thousands of Korean people died from starvation. Now, I know what you're going to ask me. You're going to ask me, how was my life during that time? And I'm going to tell you the truth. My life has never changed since I've been in the GPRK. The Korean people starved to death, but I got my rice rations, 800 grams a day, every day the same. When I eat my rice
I think about the people who died, who starved to death, but yet they fed me.
I always thought if I could get over there, I could talk him into coming back. I always thought I could. I kind of just decided that he's gone. He's not going to come back. He's not going to be able to come back.
Why would he want to?
The people in the West, why? Why do they let their own people starve to death and feed an American? The great leader has given us special solicitude. Like I said before, the government is going to take care of me until my dying day.
Well, there you go. What do we think, comrades? Oh, it said that, says in May 2006, James Joseph Dresnok was taken seriously ill and spent a lengthy period in hospital. On discharge, his doctors advised him to change his lifestyle again. He continues to smoke and drink. Then just the producers was to thank the families, the colleagues of the defectors, and all service personnel from both sides of the DMZ for their help making the film. Of course, Cinnamon. Always. What did we all think of that movie? It wasn't explicitly pro-DPRK, of course, but I think listening to Joe Dresnok, you know, it was pretty blurry, so I don't blame you, Cinnamon. It was definitely blurry. I thought listening to Joe Dresnok, though, really was a helpful thing. Yeah, we're used to the bias. We can sort of weed through that, right? I would hope. Most people watching this channel anyway would be able to. Oh. Look who's chiming in now. He sounds like he'll be fun in the near future. Shut the fuck up, Jordan Peterson. Piece of shit. And then I wanted to show you this, I noticed too. This guy. Look. Watch this guy. Fucking guy caught the fucking jar and thought he developed spider powers. He cut the jar sideways and figured he developed some sort of super fucking powers of some kind. Oh god, I love that. Yeah, hey, Blatt, exactly, right? It's worth a shot. It's most definitely worth a shot. That's for sure. So, don't forget, on Monday we're gonna be watching this movie, comrades. You won't want to miss this. Look at this change of pace. Not alone, Blatt. I did the same thing.
다니지 말고 땅에 발붙이고 살아라.
looks so super wholesome, does it not?
아닙니다. 잠깐만.
땅속에서나 하늘을 날아보겠다고?
누워서 침에 들면 제 얼굴에 떨어진다는 걸 알아요.
부처녀가 자꾸만 눈앞에 울거리는 게 깨라는 거 말이에요.
문찬 재미가 거든.
Tune into the channel Monday for that wholesome ass looking movie. I think that looks like a fantastic change of pace. Because last we watched Battle at Lake Changjin Part 1 and 2. And then following this, we'll find something else to watch. Maybe that Oliver Stone movie will be what we do after that. If you like a good trapeze movie, there's a good, slightly corning but Lancaster one called Trapeze. I'll have to check that out. Thank you for the recommendation, GMO. By the way, don't forget you can always type in socials here. A slightly corny. Yep. I'll have to check that out. I mean, this one here, Comrade King Goes Flying, what we're gonna watch Monday, it's definitely corny and cheesy, but it's wholesome and also a nice change of pace, I figure, from the last two war movies. Okay, don't forget you can get to my socials there, by the way, comrades. And don't forget, it's not just your regular socials, as I always say. We have a whole wealth of snippets from articles here, as well as you can go into the more section, go to videos. And we have all kinds of videos that aren't even on YouTube anymore, that have been taken down, etc. for various reasons. And I have the same thing with the DPRK page right here. Again, all kinds of various articles, not all just DPRK, but, you know, stuff relating to Juche as well. And again, lots of videos, some that we have been watching on this channel. Like there's a clip from the Joe Dresnok show movie that we just watched right there. And also, I would encourage you to join our Discord if you're looking for a great community of communists to hang out with. Not just my Discord, it's Red Star Vanguard. We have Comrade Valkyrie, Comrade Vivian, who also stream, and just a great group of communists. We can all learn and talk with each other in there, as well as it's a good place if you want to find fellow people to play games with who aren't reactionaries. Because, you know, there's nothing worse than playing a fucking game with randoms who turn out to be utter reactionary shitbags. And don't forget to, of course, bookmark us over here at Iskra. I'm thinking maybe what we should start doing is maybe we'll read a little bit of Peace, Land, and Bread. We'll see what articles we want to check out for that. And I also want to go look at a couple of the DPRK English textbooks as well. And then don't forget Tuesday, we are reading through Redskin White Masks right now. We're on chapter 3 of this, which we continue on Tuesday, sorry. And if I stream on the weekend, it'll be some sort of like relaxed game stream, by the way. If you do enjoy and support my work, I encourage you to hit the subscribe or the gift button or the sound effects down below. And if not, I thank you for hanging out with me either way. We are going to raid into Sebs. But before I do that, I want to leave you all with the usual quote that I always do. How about one from Michael Perenni today? The last 2 decades, one of the fastest growing markets has been in guns, clubs, helmets, bulletproof vests, and other items of domestic warfare sold to law officers. And the fastest growing area of public employment has been the police and prison guards. The prison populations in most states have grown exponentially, mostly with small-time drug users. By 1995, 1996, California was spending more on prisons than on education. This is not to assume that the police are busy fighting crime. For all their new equipment and personnel, they do little, if anything, to stop the big drug traffickers, slumlords, sweatshop operators, mobsters, corrupt politicians, spouse beaters, child abusers, rapists, muggers, hate mongers, and others who prey off the most vulnerable among us. The real function of the police is social control. Their job is to keep in line those elements that might prove potentially troublesome to the powers that be. Michael Perenni, ACAB, 1312, comrades. Again, thank you all for joining. Let's raid into Sebs, dear friend of the channel. F12. Again, I want to thank you all so very much for hanging out with me today. I always appreciate your company. On the week, don't forget also we have 14 days left to fulfill that getting over it challenge. If you want to see me suffer and getting over it, which I know you probably do. Why wouldn't ya? Thank you very much, GMO. I encourage anyone who isn't in the Discord, again, join up on the Discord. Follow my work on Iskra Books. Follow me on Twitter. If you were so inclined. And I will be back at the latest Monday. I might do a little bit of game streaming on the weekend. We shall see. Leave Sebs with our Juche gang emotes, comrades. And let's come back. Come join me on the weekend or on Monday. Love you all. Bye, comrades. You're all amazing.